Chapter 743. When Han Fei finished reading the impermanent golden halberd, he was slightly confused at first, but then he subconsciously spun the harpoon in his hand. Then, to the astonishment of Yu and the others, a spinning white water shield was condensed in front of Han Fei. The harpoon was spinning very fast, making the shield look like a high-speed wheel. The water splashed, which was quite beautiful. Yu asked in shock, "How did you learn so fast?" Han Fei had already made up his mind when he spun the harpoon. Since Yu said that he was an Azure Sea Blue Demon and on the same level as a half-mermaid, he certainly had to perform better. Anyway, he couldn't find the way to the Scattered Stars Island, so it was better to let Yu lead the way than to wander around like a headless fly. Besides, Yu was no ordinary heavenly talent. She must have a lot of treasures. If he could find a chance to kill her, he might be able to make a fortune. After learning the impermanent golden halberd, Han Fei looked at Yu and bared his teeth. "I'll follow you." A smile appeared on Yuji's face. However, before she finished laughing, she heard the half-mermaid say, "Yuji, we have a mission to carry out. We didn't find the Sea Demon Mountain, but we picked up an Azure Sea Blue Demon of unknown origins. That's not good, is it?" Han Fei was stunned. "They're here for the Sea Demon Mountain? F***CKU. It wasn't easy for me to escape from the Sea Demon Mountain, and you want to find me?" Yu said coldly. Yu, do you think it's a problem for me to take an Azure Sea Blue Demon with me?" The half-mermaid clenched his fists. "Humph." Han Fei was stunned. "What's that?" Yu? How pleasant." Seeing Han Fei's shock, Yu immediately realized that Han Fei didn't have a name yet. So she asked, "What's your name?" Han Fei secretly sneered. "My name is Han Fei. Kill me?" However, Han Fei's expression was rather dull in Yuji's eyes. She smiled. "Well, I don't think you have a name either. Since you're following me, I'll give you one. How about dried fish?" Han Fei was stunned, as if thousands of ironhead fish were running in his heart. "What King dried fish? Thank you so much. You're the dried fish. Your whole family is dried fish." Seeming to satisfy Yuji's bad taste, Yuji immediately said generously, "You gone. You'll follow me from now on. I guarantee that you will be outstanding, but if you are talented enough to surpass ordinary half-mermaids, there is a certain chance. If your demonic heritage evolves again, it's not impossible for you to become a half-mermaid." Han Fei sneered in his heart. "Evolve again? If I want to become a half-mermaid, I can do it in a few days. However, you won't be able to see it. If there's a chance on the road, I'll kill you." Shwa shwa shwa. Suddenly, a few more half-mermaids and red demons rushed out. Han Fei counted carefully. Including Yuji, there were 7 half-mermaids and 7 red demons. At this moment, the half-mermaids also noticed Han Fei, and someone couldn't help but ask, "Is this an Azure Sea Blue Demon?" Yuji immediately declared, "An Azure Sea Blue Demon who has just awakened is following me. Judging from his strength, he shouldn't be weak. He won't affect our search for the Sea Demon Mountain Range." A half-mermaid frowned. "Why is there an Azure Sea Blue Demon all of a sudden? Are you sure it's just awakened?" Yuji nodded. "I just taught it the Sea Demon language. It can't be wrong." Someone nodded casually. "Since you took it, we'll leave it to you. However, you can take this Azure Sea Blue Demon with you." Someone laughed. "Yuji, although Azure Sea Blue Demons can grow their demonic heritage, have you ever seen an Azure Sea Blue Demon grow into an advanced demonic heritage?" Yuji nodded. "I'd love to. What do you want?" Yuji was quite satisfied with Han Fei's performance. He followed Yuji no more than 30 meters away from her. He didn't follow the others, and he was even slightly wary of them. Yuji felt lucky that Yu didn't try to win Han Fei over, but tried to invade his soul. Otherwise, this Azure Sea Blue Demon wouldn't have fallen into her hands. At this moment, a bunch of half-mermaids and red demons were gathered together, and Han Fei was 30 meters away from Yuji. Someone said, "Yuji, can you ask your Azure Sea Blue Demon to step back? Why are you following us?" Yuji said, "We're talking telepathically. He can't hear us. What are you scared of? Besides, we're looking for the Sea Demon Mountain. Is there anything to hide? If you want to say something, just say it." Everybody seemed rather wary of Yuji, and Han Fei pretended to be a newbie. Han Fei seemed to be a bit silly, but he was eavesdropping. In terms of soul power and spiritual power, Han Fei was confident that nobody here was as strong as him. Someone said, "The treasures in this treasure trove are not bad, but I think we should give up on the Sea Demon Mountain. There are countless powerful creatures in such a vast area. Half of the teams that set off at the beginning have perished. If we keep searching and run into powerful creatures, I'm afraid we'll all die here." Someone frowned. "I agree. The Sea Demon Mountain has come to the clear conclusion that it was moved away by force. If it's not human beings, it must be a powerful creature in the ocean. Wouldn't it be easy for someone who can move an entire mountain to kill us?" Someone objected. "We can't be too pessimistic. What if it's an opportunity for us? The expert must have moved the Sea Demon Mountain for a reason, right? What if the expert has already left? If we find the Sea Demon Mountain range, we might get some unexpected benefits." Someone shook his head. "Why would the expert leave something for you after taking it away? Also, haven't you heard? Almost all the creatures stationed in the Sea Demon Mountain are dead. The air of death enshrouds the land where the Sea Demon Mountain used to be." Yuji pondered for a moment and said, "It must have something to do with the three weird sounds. The royal city has confirmed that it wasn't caused by human beings. The Sea Demon Mountain must still be in this area. If we can find it, we might be able to get in touch with the super experts outside of the royal city. Then the experts of the royal city will come to negotiate with us." A sea demon said impatiently, the royal city, they talk about the royal city every day. They don't even know where the royal city is. Right now, the sea demons in the front line think that the 10,000 Demon Valley is the royal city, and they've been looking forward to it. However, what will they think if they learn that the royal city is still far away? Han Fei listened to them with great interest. It seemed that the sea demons did have a royal city. The Sea Demon Mountain used to be the front line of the sea demons. As for where exactly was the 10,000 Demon Valley, Han Fei didn't know. In the end, they came to a conclusion. They would search for another 7 days. If they couldn't find it, they would return home. Han Fei was lost for words. Those people were truly bold. If Chun Huangyan were here, they would all be killed. Han Fei was rather helpless. The Sea Demon Mountain was already a mess of battles. When he fought his way out, the entire Sea Demon Mountain had almost been drilled into a hole. Not just the spiritual stones, even the demonic stones were looted by the sea creatures. It was not hard to imagine the result. Many creatures went crazy and began a massacre. Once a battle broke out, it wouldn't end so easily. Han Fei thought that the battle might still be going on at this moment. A moment later, everybody set off again. As it turned out, the direction they came from was exactly the direction that Han Fei was running. Han Fei couldn't help but look awful. He wondered if he should find a chance to slip away. He had thought that he could find his way home by following Yuji. However, those people were seeking death by running to the Sea Demon Mountain. Why did he run away? It was because the Sea Demon Mountain was still dangerous. Yuji looked at Han Fei and frowned. "Huh, you gone. You seem to be wary of this direction." Han Fei couldn't say anything at this point. He simply grimaced and said, "A lot of powerful creatures went there." The half-mermaids were stunned to hear that. "You came from there?" A half-mermaid stared at Han Fei. "Have you seen a huge mountain that's more than 800 kilometers long?" Han Fei shook his head. "No, I dare not go there." A half-mermaid couldn't help but chuckle. "You're truly cowardly. Although you've awakened into an azure sea blue demon, you're still useless." Yuji snorted. "You sound like you were better than him when you were awakened." Someone said, "Stop bickering." If a large number of powerful beings were heading to a certain place, then there would definitely be some unforeseen event. Let's hurry up. We should be able to find some clues. Even if it's not the Sea Demon Mountain, it must be something else, such as a treasure trove or an undersea chimney. The speed of a group of sea demons was much faster than that of a single person. In just one day, the group had killed 5 exotic creatures, 3 of which were level 50 and above. Han Fei also found that among these sea demons, in addition to Yuji, there were two other sea demons who had semi-divine weapons. Some of them didn't reveal their strength and couldn't be identified. On the third day, everybody was in a hurry because they found that a lot of creatures had gathered in the sea up ahead. At this moment, the seawater began to hum and tremble. Everybody spread out their senses, only to discover that a large amount of orange water was drifting at them overwhelmingly. Before the red mist, a lot of creatures were rushing crazily at Han Fei and the others. Yu and the half-mermaids all changed their expressions. Chapter 744. Han Fei didn't know what the bloodthirsty sesame shrimp was yet, but he knew that it couldn't be a simple sea creature since it scared the heavenly talents like Yu. Yu and the others had already begun to run at full speed like human-shaped missiles in the water. Han Fei was no exception. He was even slightly faster than the red demons. Yu and the others were slightly surprised, as they thought that Han Fei couldn't keep up with them. When the red demons saw that their speed was even slower than that damn Yugon, how could they not risk their lives? Their position was already in jeopardy. If they didn't try their best, they would be sacrificed. Yu was deep in thought. This Yugon runs so fast. Was he awakened from a creature that was very good at speed? The bloodthirsty sesame shrimp were much more aggressive than Han Fei expected. Almost all the regular creatures were running for their lives when the creatures crushed them. The shellfish at the bottom of the ocean all closed their shells. Some turtles used secret techniques to build protective barriers with rocks before they fell to the bottom of the ocean and blocked themselves. Han Fei was lost for words. Were these creatures exactly the same as the marching sea leeches? They sucked blood wherever they went. But at this moment, the marching sea leeches shouldn't be a problem for hanging fishers, right? They couldn't even break the protective barriers. What was there to be scared of? Yu roared. We'll run for an hour. It'll be great if the bloodthirsty sesame shrimp stop. If they don't, we'll take off. Hearing that, the half-mermaid named Yu asked, what? You don't want the azure sea blue demon that you just tamed? Yu said, I'll take it with me. Whoever brought the red demon here can take it away. Everybody was lost for words. Sea demons were not good at aerial battles in the first place. The flying skateboards were very costly, and they were carrying people. Did they want to die sooner than they could? Unfortunately, he did not manage to hold on for more than an hour. After running for less than 5 minutes, countless mad bloodworms appeared out of nowhere and attacked him. Like blood-sucking sesame shrimps, they surrounded the group. Yu and the others were lost for words. Someone cursed. How did the mad bloodworms get together with the blood-sucking sesame shrimp? Won't they devour each other? Everyone was forced to change their direction. However, in less than 5 minutes, he found that countless dry leaf starfish had floated over from nowhere. All of a sudden, the group of people could not think of any other way but to run up into the sky. Yu shouted at Han Fei, Come here. Han Fei also rushed up without hesitation. Actually, none of this was a big problem for him. If necessary, he could at least let Goldie possess him and fly to the sky. But these sea demons couldn't. Yu grabbed Han Fei with one hand, and her whole body shot out like a super cannon, almost reaching the speed of sound in the water. Bang! The water surface exploded, and a skateboard condensed under Yuji's feet and flew up into the sky. Just as the two broke out of the water, Han Fei felt an inexplicable stress reaction on his skin like he was being watched. No, I've been sensed. Han Fei was so shocked that he didn't even dare to release his senses. Other people didn't have such a feeling, but he did. This strange sensation made his hair stand on end. For some reason, he thought of Chun Huangdian. Immediately, Han Fei realized what was going on. Back then, Chun Huangdian said that he must die. Chun Huangdian didn't say it clearly, but his meaning was obvious. He saw the birth of the heavenly cicada, which threatened Xia Xiaochan's safety. What Han Fei didn't understand was that Chun Huangdian came so fast. From the birth of the heavenly cicada to Chun Huangdian's arrival, the two of them had no time to escape. Han Fei did consider that other people might come to him. He even wondered if someone had been here during the time of his death. But it didn't seem to be the case. Other people had come, but those people hadn't arrived yet. Han Fei immediately came up with an idea. Apart from everything else, The sea demons must have been discovered by other people. There was no telling how far his perception had traveled. Would he be killed if he ran there now? Han Fei immediately pulled Yuji. Hide in the sea, in the shell. Yuji replied, we can't hide. With the mad bloodworms, we can't run away even if we hide in the shell. Han Fei instantly became gloomy. Son of AB *TCH. He thought that he could escape with Yuji's help, but he was led back to the trap again. There was no telling who invented the flying skateboard, which was like a surfboard. It was controlled by spiritual energy or demonic chi and couldn't fly fast at all. Han Fei looked back, only to see a boundless red ocean that had been covered by the blood-sucking sesame shrimps. The other half-mermaids didn't even want to bring the red demons with them. Only 2 of them flew to the sky with 2 red demons. The other 5 red demons were still rushing in the water. As they were rushing, the 5 red demons were hit by the mad bloodworms. The crazy red demons were surrounded by the blood-sucking sesame shrimps. In Han Fei's senses, countless red shrimps only a few millimeters in size crawled all over the red demons. The so-called spiritual energy barrier was broken after only 10 seconds under the attack of the blood-sucking sesame shrimps. The blood-sucking sesame shrimps crazily crawled into the red demons' bodies from their ears and nostrils. In only an instant, the 5 red demons were drained. Han Fei felt that his blood was freezing. This thing was too horrifying. It had nothing to do with strength. How many of those creatures that were only a few millimeters in size could you kill if you went to the heavens? Not just Han Fei, but all the half-mermaids in the sky were horrified too. They weren't level 50 yet and couldn't fly to the sky. If they ran out of spiritual energy and demonic chi and fell, wouldn't they be dead? Immediately, Han Fei saw that the other 2 people who were carrying the red demons were suddenly shocked by a huge force and sent the 2 red demons flying. Han Fei's pupils constricted when he saw that. As he expected, they were all sea demons that were transformed from fish. How could they have feelings? The 7 red demons were all killed in an instant. Not a single one was left. Han Fei was ready to take action at any moment. If Yuji dared to leave him behind, he would stab her with his harpoon before he fell. However, out of Han Fei's expectation, Yuji didn't abandon Han Fei. Yuji said, don't worry. I can take you away as long as I brought you here. Han Fei rolled his eyes. You could take me away? It's not even certain if you can leave on your own. After a while, as far as everyone's eyes could see, there were all kinds of group marine creatures. In particular, the blood-sucking sesame shrimps and the mad bloodworms finally collided. Tremendous mad bloodworms were drained, and the blood-sucking sesame shrimps went crazy and swept across every corner of the bottom of the ocean. Someone said telepathically, Yuji, leave the azure sea blue demon behind, or you'll die too. Someone roared, Yuji, we still have our amulets. If we run back with our amulets and immortal seals, we might be able to survive. Yuji shouted, I brought him here. I'll take him back. Han Fei didn't say anything. He thought that if he were really an inferior manfish, he probably would have been subdued by Yuji. This was pure charisma. There were such people among humans, and there were also such demons among sirens. Unfortunately, Han Fei was not a sea demon. Whether Yuji did it on purpose or not, he would never surrender to her. Han Fei thought that Yuji was not bad among the half-mermaids. After no more than a quarter of an hour, all the sea demons, including Yuji, took out spiritual fruits and swallowed them. This would last them for half a day. Someone exclaimed, something's not right. Why are all these creatures bursting out? Also, how can they last for such a long time? When everybody's spiritual energy was about to run dry again, everybody saw hope. The seawater became pure again. Yuji took a deep breath. Let's go back. Even if they used their butts to think, they knew that something big must have happened up ahead. Otherwise, why were so many weird, colonial creatures running in the same direction? However, Han Fei sensed that a vague perception scanned him. Bam! Including Han Fei, the 8 of them were suddenly pressed to the surface of the ocean by a gravity. At this moment, the sea seemed to have frozen. None of them fell into the water. Han Fei cursed in his heart. It's coming. It's coming. He subconsciously glanced at the demon purification pot. It didn't disappear. Good. This time, there was enough spiritual energy. If there was an accident, he should be able to survive with the sky interception finger. Yuji and the other half-mermaids were dumbfounded. Why did they fall? The next moment, a phantom stood proudly in the air. It was a middle-aged man in a red robe, looking majestic. He just glanced at them, and all of them, including Yuji, lay on the surface of the sea, trembling. Of course, Han Fei had to behave the same as them. It was a phantom again. This phantom, with just a thought, was enough to suppress everyone. Yuji and the other half-mermaids were all trembling, and two of them were even talking to each other via voice transmission. One of them said, "It's a human being. It's really a human being." Another person responded, "I should have thought of it. It's ridiculous that King City said it was not a human being." Han Fei was just a quiet, inferior manfish. At this moment, his body was twitching. He didn't think a figure of this level would attack a few half-mermaids and an inferior manfish like him. The human powerhouse asked casually, "Tell me, have you met a human being nearby in the past few days? He's not strong, probably about the same as you." Yuji said awkwardly, "My lord, we haven't seen any human beings here. We're just looking for a missing sea demon mountain." Yu said, "My lord, we haven't seen any human beings, but we've just captured an azure sea blue demon." Han Fei almost wanted to hack this idiot to death. At this critical moment of life and death, you still want to stir up trouble? The middle-aged man scanned Han Fei several times, and Han Fei vomited a mouthful of blood. The middle-aged man shook his head and glanced at Han Fei in disdain. It seemed that even someone like Han Fei wasn't qualified to be questioned by him. His figure disappeared, but the pressure was still there. The half-mermaids didn't even dare to look up. Han Fei, on the other hand, quietly came to Yu with a harpoon. In an instant, the harpoon flashed coldly, and the harpoon pierced through Yu. The huge force stabbed Yu dozens of meters deep into the sea. It wasn't until Han Fei's aura burst out that all the half-mermaids realized what was going on. At this time, Han Fei had slipped back to Yuji and pointed the harpoon at Yu. It was impossible to kill Yu, who might have immortal seals on him, but it shouldn't be a problem to stab him with the harpoon. Of course, when Han Fei retreated, Yu whipped Han Fei with his tail and sent him flying. Chapter 745. All the half-mermaids were dumbfounded by Han Fei's actions. Even Yuji didn't expect that Han Fei would run to Yu and stab him with his harpoon while the strong master was still breathing. Han Fei, who had run back with a dark face, was glaring at Yu and saying, "I'm not stupid." Everyone was dumbfounded when they heard, "I'm not stupid." The half-mermaid was still in shock. What's wrong with this world? Yu vomited a mouthful of blood and launched a violent blow, ready to kill Han Fei. However, he was blocked by Yuji. Yu shouted angrily, "Get out of the way. Let me kill this azure sea blue demon." Yuji's eyes were cold. "Didn't you know what you said in front of that super strong master just now?" Yu roared. "He's just an azure sea blue demon. What is he?" Yuji said coldly. "Yu, don't think too highly of yourself. Your identity and demonic heritage may not be higher than that of an azure sea blue demon. Have you forgotten Master Qi Shuahuan? Why don't you try to provoke him?" Seeing that Yuji was defending him, Han Fei didn't feel proud at all. Did these be asterisk stars really think that the strong master had left? Are you kidding me? That kind of strong master could sense the world with a single thought. Maybe he was watching a joke at this moment. And Han Fei's real intention to attack Yu at the risk of being attacked by the crowd was not to retaliate against Yu, but to let Yu slap him. Of course, that blow didn't hurt him, but it showed that Yu was stronger than him. So, Han Fei was actually putting on a show. He felt that as long as someone was watching, this show was worth it. A half-mermaid shouted, "I have a question. How can an azure sea blue demon that has just awakened withstand the pressure of such a strong master?" Yes, before I realized what was going on, this guy had quietly slipped behind Yu. He doesn't seem to be a newly awakened master. Even Yuji couldn't help looking at Han Fei. Just now, even she didn't feel that Han Fei had slipped away. This kind of strength really surprised her. Yuji looked at Han Fei. Yugon, how did you withstand the pressure of a strong master? Han Fei was still staring at Yu. I'll be fine after vomiting blood. All the half-mermaids were stunned by Han Fei's words. When they saw Han Fei vomiting blood just now, they all thought that Han Fei vomited blood because he couldn't bear the pressure. However, from the looks of it now, this fellow was actually able to dispel the pressure of a powerhouse by vomiting blood. What a smart azure sea blue demon. Tens of thousands of kilometers away, a middle-aged man frowned. Interesting. It seems to be an azure sea blue demon that was awakened by a smart creature. Humph, but no matter how smart it is, it's just an inferior sea demon. You must be dreaming if you think that you can become an expert through the growth of the spirit vein. This middle-aged man just paid a little attention to them. Soon after, he muttered, "What a good technique, crossing the sea with the heavens and concealing the mysteries of heaven. The human should be dead." In fact, he had released as many as 22 doppelgangers at the same time, and their range of control was 100,000 kilometers. This meant that there were 21 other teams being questioned at the same time as them. However, Han Fei didn't know any of this. At this moment, Han Fei hid behind Yu, looking very vigilant. Seeing this scene, Yuji's eyes lit up. This azure sea blue demon seemed to be a bit special. Before it was awakened, it should be an extremely smart creature. And it was a creature that would take revenge. Yuji couldn't help thinking, it's true that the deeper you go into the sea, the more strong you will meet. Even the azure sea blue demon that awakened in the deep sea is so special. Suddenly, Yuji's heart trembled slightly. Could this Yugon be? Yuji shouted, "Okay, this matter has been settled. Yu, don't say that I didn't give you a chance. If you frame your companions again, I will kill you myself." Humph. With the pressure of this powerhouse, everyone couldn't help but feel scared, so they didn't dare to explore further. Besides, they had encountered a human super powerhouse, which was enough for them to report back. Half a month later, it had been a little more than a day since they were last detected. Han Fei felt that the powerhouse should have given up and wasn't going to stare at them anymore. This made Han Fei secretly heave a sigh of relief. Where did Chun Huangdian and this middle-aged man come from? Anyway, they couldn't be from the Thousand-Star City. How could the powerhouse of the Thousand-Star City be so terrifying? Even after suppressing his realm, he could completely suppress Han Fei in a head-on battle. If there really were such a person, he would have wiped out all the sea demons in the unknown place. In the past few days, Yuji had been teaching Han Fei some simple sea demon fighting skills. At this moment, Han Fei was spinning the harpoon, forming a water shield. Not far away, arrows that looked like spears darted at Han Fei one after another. The arrows fell on the water shield, but as soon as they touched it, they were shattered by the rotating force. Yuji shouted on the side, "Yugon, the impermanent golden halberd is not only good for defense. Try to penetrate the shell of the arrow heart shells with the skill of splitting metal and splitting water." Han Fei roared, waved his hand, and his whole body seemed to be rolling up and down waves, narrowly avoiding the attack of the arrow heart shells. On the harpoon, cold light flashed, and as Han Fei pointed the harpoon at the carapace of the arrow heart shells, it was easily penetrated. Yuji's eyes flickered. "Okay, that's it for today. Yugon, you've made great progress." Han Fei couldn't help but want to roll his eyes at Yuji. Is killing an arrow heart shell something to be proud of? I have to play with you every day, killing this one today and that one tomorrow. However, on the surface, Han Fei grinned and pretended to be very happy to be praised. The other half-mermaids were a little jealous, and someone said, "Yuji, this azure sea blue demon is making progress too fast. Maybe he really can become your bodyguard." Yuji shook her head. "I never thought that Yugon would follow me. All sea demons are of the same clan. I'm just guiding Yugon." Someone smiled faintly. This kind of guidance is equivalent to enlightenment. As his enlightenment teacher, Yugon will remember you for the rest of his life. Han Fei secretly mocked. "I won't remember you for the rest of my life. You named me Yugon, and you wanted to thank you for that?" Yuji didn't reply, but simply said casually, We'll be back to the 10,000 Demon Valley in 5 days. If he was not mistaken, the Sea Demon Mountain Range should be where the powerhouse would descend. Just report this matter to the higher-ups. Han Fei had heard of the 10,000 Demon Valley many times. It must be a place where sea demons gathered. He wondered if there were powerful sea demons that could see through him. It seemed to be a gamble. In the past half-month, Han Fei had tried to find a chance to escape or kill those people more than once. However, those Be Astra's star journey was rather smooth. They didn't even run into a treasure trove. All the living beings they encountered ran away early in the morning. Another day passed, and Han Fei finally found a treasure trove. Han Fei was so moved that he almost cried. Who said that there were as many treasure troves as there were stars in the sky? It took me more than half a month to recognize a treasure trove. It was a woodland of dead corals. The corals were only white and gray, and the whole area looked like a raised hill. Han Fei wouldn't have noticed this place, but he noticed a white lobster. Judging from the flow of spiritual energy in its body, it seemed to be declining due to lack of spiritual energy. Han Fei's first thought was that there was a creature here that could absorb the spiritual energy in the bodies of living creatures. Secondly, there was a poisonous creature here that had killed all the creatures within dozens of kilometers. In fact, even the creatures that lived here were suffering from albinism. Nobody paid attention to this place. There were too many similar places in the ocean. Who could explore them one by one? But Han Fei was rather tempted. He secretly controlled the void chain and whipped the white corals. Someone roared, "Wait a minute. Something's wrong here. There seems to be an anomaly in this dead coral land." Someone sensed it. "I sensed it just now too, but it's gone now," Yu said. "It seems that a treasure trove is about to appear in the dead coral land. Let's go look for it." Everybody was surprised that there was a treasure trove. Of course, they didn't rush back. They were already at their doorstep. What was there to be afraid of? Han Fei landed with Yu, and Yu glanced at Han Fei. "You gone. Don't stay too far away from me." Han Fei nodded. As an array master, Han Fei was quickly observing the terrain at this moment. With just a glance, he knew that there was a spirit-gathering array somewhere underground. Not only that, but it seemed to be mixed with evil arrays that could swallow life essence. Han Fei didn't notice it at first, but after searching for about 5 minutes, Han Fei found that his spiritual energy had dropped by 20 points. This was a very small number that ordinary people couldn't feel at all. If it weren't for the fact that Han Fei could see the data, he might not have felt it himself. Han Fei broke a piece of dead coral and licked it with his tongue. A half-mermaid laughed. "Hey, you gone, you silly fish. Can't you even eat dead coral?" A half-mermaid laughed. "This Yugon is so stubborn. I'm afraid he wasn't a smart fish before he was awakened." Han Fei ignored them. He found that the heaven spirit detoxifying insect in his body moved. Just then, Han Fei knew that there was a colorless and odorless poison here that even he didn't know about. Impressive. The spirit gathering array is set up here, but is not discovered. There should be a strong seal underground. Where is it? The 3rd chapter, asking for monthly votes. I'm wondering if I can take a break. I haven't finished the next chapter yet. Anyway, asking for votes first. It's a bit tiring. End of this chapter. Chapter 746. A quarter of an hour later, Han Fei found the problem, which turned out to be a poison overflowing from a crack in the bluestone material at the bottom of the sea. A half-mermaid said, "Are you sure this place is weird? I don't think it's a threat at all. Although this coral bush is dead, other creatures will still swim over, which shows that this is not a dangerous place." Yu echoed, "Maybe we're overthinking. If there is a secret realm in the Coral Deadland, it should have been discovered by the 10,000 Demon Valley." Yu nodded. "Okay, if we still can't find it in a while, we'll leave." Han Fei sneered. "Leave? Of course I won't let you leave. This secret realm is just right. It's poisonous, can absorb vitality, and has a large spirit gathering array. This shows that there must be a place where spiritual energy is gathered, a place where poisonous barriers are rampant, and something that can absorb vitality. No matter whether that thing is dead or alive, it's definitely not good for these people to go down there." So, Han Fei accidentally touched this bluestone. Gotcha. The crack on the bluestone suddenly widened several times. The 7 of them immediately sensed it. Han Fei looked around blankly, not knowing what was going on. In the next second, Yu arrived first, staring at the crack on the bluestone with bright eyes. Yu glanced at Han Fei and then patted the stone. Crack! The crack widened again. Someone said in surprise, "There's something wrong with this stone. It seems to have a little bit of spirit-swallowing power, but it's very little, almost negligible." Someone glanced at Han Fei. "Yugon, how did you find it?" Han Fei looked at Yu blankly. I don't know." Yu grinned. Sure enough, he was just lucky enough to encounter the bluestone. That's why the bluestone cracked. It's just a coincidence. Yu also believed this explanation. After all, Han Fei only awakened as an azure sea blue demon hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. He must have never been to the Coral Deadland. If Han Fei had seen through the entrance of the secret realm, he wouldn't have been so confused now. Yu hacked with her harpoon, and the bluestone was split open without even exerting any strength. Han Fei couldn't help but be a little speechless. Even if he didn't discover it this time, in less than a month or two, this bluestone would crack on its own. However, this also surprised Han Fei. How long had this bluestone been here? It was actually so brittle when the bluestone shattered, an inconspicuous round hole appeared in front of everyone. At that moment, Han Fei saw that his reserve of spiritual energy was reduced by 5 points. The eye of the formation is already broken, but the seal hasn't been activated yet. Clearly, there are more seals and restrictions below. Someone said, "Yugon, you can leave first." Yuji glared at him. "Why don't you go down?" The man was speechless. "Yuji, aren't you being too protective of him? Even if you trained him to be your left and right guard, shouldn't he take the lead at a time like this?" Yuji frowned. Although his strength is not weak, he can't use it freely. "I'll go first." Han Fei stood in front of Yuji, blocking her way. Yuji was stunned. This was the first time that Han Fei had stood in front of her. Obviously, he didn't want her to take risks. Yuji thought, sure enough, only when you treat people sincerely will others treat you sincerely. However, what Yuji didn't know was that Han Fei wanted to go down because he wanted to get the treasures first and set up seals to kill as many as he could. If he let others go down first, how could he do anything to them? Han Fei's voice was indifferent, without a trace of emotion. "Wait for me." Up! With that, Han Fei jumped into the seal without hesitation. After falling down, the first thing Han Fei saw was a piece of lime powder-like sediment. There were a lot of milky white stones and transparent underground rock crystals here. The long and narrow passage went all the way inside, and nobody knew where it led. Next, Han Fei wanted to go back and see if he could get out of this seal. In the end, it was just as he had expected. Not even the power of traction could leak out. Sure enough, once people came in, they couldn't get out. Immediately, Han Fei grinned. F***, I'm so bored. Sons of cheese, I'll kill you later. Han Fei had been paying attention to the loss of spiritual energy and found that the reserve of spiritual energy at this moment was dropping at the speed of 5 or 6 points per second. This speed was already very terrifying. If people stayed here for half an hour without spiritual fruits, the spiritual energy in their bodies would basically run out. TSK, not bad. Han Fei walked straight into the secret realm. Anyway, he couldn't get out, so he had an excuse to get out. But after they came in, if they couldn't stand it, it would be a good time for him to make a move. Going inside, Han Fei found a huge undersea cave with rugged rocks, all showing an unhealthy white color. Han Fei felt that the heaven spirit detoxifying insect in his body would move occasionally. Obviously, there was still a trace of poison in it. When Han Fei's eyes fell on the center of the undersea cave, his face darkened. What the F***ck was this secret realm? This was simply a place to raise poison. In Han Fei's vision, it was a fateful poison grass. According to the complete collection of spiritual plants in the infinite ocean, the fateful poison grass was a strange poison that was divided into 2 states. One was when it was immature, called the fateful poison grass, which was extremely poisonous. It could not only erode the body, but also the soul. Once touched, one would die in 3 days. Once eaten, one would die in 3 seconds. The other was when it was mature, called the fateful holy grass, which was extremely nutritious. Once eaten, one's body would become mysterious and contain infinite vitality, and it was even possible to break the barrier of the soul. And the one Han Fei saw now was not yet mature, but it was about to mature. Only the fateful poison grass that was about to mature would need a lot of spiritual energy and vitality to mature. It was probably for this reason that the fateful poison grass increased its demand for spiritual energy and vitality, which led to the exposure of this secret realm. However, Han Fei's eyes flickered at this moment. The fateful poison grass must not be touched. If he wanted to mature it now, it would take at least a few months. But how could he wait for this spiritual grass to mature for a few months? As for maturing, it was very simple. He just needed to fill it with vitality and nourish it with spiritual energy. Han Fei couldn't afford to raise this thing by himself. However, there were still 7 half-mermaids and half-mermaids outside. It seemed to be quite cost-effective to use the 7 of them to mature this fateful poison grass. Of course, the premise was that these people didn't know what the fateful poison grass was. Otherwise, they might kill him and feed him to the fateful poison grass. The problem was that every spiritual plant had a guardian creature. After all, there were creatures everywhere on the seabed. During the growth of the spiritual plant from the spore state, some creatures would definitely benefit from it. Among them, the most powerful creature would gradually evolve into a guardian creature. But the guardian creatures would also fight and kill, and those who survived were always the strongest. Han Fei didn't see the guardian creature at this moment. The guardian creature of the fateful poison grass must not be simple. First of all, it had to be able to survive without relying on spiritual energy, then it had to survive without vitality, and finally, it had to be resistant to poison. This kind of creature was a monster in itself. Han Fei felt that unless he transformed into a human form, he might not be able to deal with it in his current state. Forget it. Let's find a way to get those guys down first. This secret realm was only as big as the seabed cave, with a radius of less than 3,000 meters. Although those half-mermaids might take the blame for him, they couldn't get out now. Even if they fell out with them, it wouldn't be a big problem. At most, he could bury the poison god in advance and kill them. Dumb. The coral dead land was trembling slightly, but for Yu and the others, they could still sense this movement. Yu said, "Yugon is knocking down there. He must be making sure that there's nothing wrong down there." Yu said, "Don't trust him. What if something happened in the secret realm?" A half-mermaid said, "Let's wait a little longer. Anyway, the coral dead land is here. It'll be the same, even if we come back later." However, there were also half-mermaids who disagreed. Later? If there's something in the secret realm, it won't be our turn in the future. Yu ignored these people and stepped into the secret realm. As soon as Yu appeared, she saw a harpoon stabbing at her. She subconsciously thought that Han Fei was ambushing her. But the next moment, Han Fei quickly put away the harpoon, looked at her, and said, "I'm trying to get out." Yu frowned. "What's down there?" Han Fei said, "My spiritual energy is disappearing." Yuji's face immediately sank. She sensed for a while and found the problem. The spiritual energy in her body was indeed decreasing. She misunderstood Yugon. She thought that Yugon wanted to ask them to come down, but in fact, Yugon wanted to go out himself. However, it was too late. From above, one half-mermaid after another had rushed down. After a while, a half-mermaid roared, "Asshole, I knew we couldn't trust the Azure Sea Blue Demon. We're all trapped here." Yu frowned. Survival is instinct. If we can't get out of the secret realm, do we just wait for death inside? Yu sneered. "No matter what the reason is, we were tricked by the noise he made. If we can't get out, I'll kill this Azure Sea Blue Demon first." Hiss! Han Fei bared his teeth at Yu, also very angry. In fact, Han Fei was secretly happy. "You can be arrogant for a while. I'll watch you cry later." First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 747. Although Yu and the others couldn't wait to kill Han Fei, they had already come down, and for the sake of Yu, they couldn't do it. Since everyone was here, he might as well find a way to break the seal as soon as possible instead of arguing with Han Fei. However, when they saw the fateful poison grass, they all showed a shocked expression. Someone exclaimed, This is not a secret realm, but a spiritual plant barrier. Yu's eyes flickered. A spiritual plant that can produce a barrier. This is a rare treasure. Yu frowned and glanced at Han Fei. You came in first. Why didn't you pick it? Han Fei replied frankly, I dare not. When they heard Han Fei say, I dare not, everyone's fervent gazes were withdrawn. Just now, they only thought that this was a rare treasure. However, which spirit plant in heaven and earth did not have a living creature guarding it? Hearing this, Yu nodded calmly. Fortunately, you didn't go. Otherwise, you might have died. A half-mermaid said, If the 7 of us join forces, no. If the 8 of us join forces, even if it is a powerful guardian, we will definitely be able to get rid of it. As long as we pick this spiritual plant treasure, the barrier will naturally be broken. Someone echoed, Yes. No matter how strong the creature is, we can't defeat it with so many of us. Let's go. Yu looked at Yu. What do you think? Yu nodded. Okay, let's take it together. As for who this spiritual plant belongs to, when we return to the city, we'll divide it according to the effect of the spiritual plant. Yu grinned. Okay, that's what I was waiting for. With that, Yu looked at Han Fei. Just don't hold us back. Let's go. Han Fei thought to himself, I have to hold you back. But this sea monster can't do it. He didn't even know the fateful poison grass. But then again, this thing didn't exist in the encyclopedia of spiritual plants. It could only be found in the complete collection of spiritual plants in the infinite ocean that he had deduced. With that, the 7 of them rushed to the fateful poison grass. Han Fei was speechless. Ignorant people are fearless. How dare you take the fateful poison grass? Are you tired of living? Han Fei was tempted, but even with the heaven spirit detoxifying insect, he didn't dare to take it. He wasn't sure if the heaven spirit detoxifying insect could block it. This was the fateful poison grass. According to Han Fei's estimation, he shouldn't be able to resist it. When he got it, the heaven spirit detoxifying insect would be the first to die. However, the fateful poison grass was about to mature, and Han Fei wouldn't give up. However, regardless of whether he could withstand the poison or not, at least he hadn't seen the Guardian yet. Han Fei was not invisible at the moment, so he wouldn't rush up stupidly. Han Fei followed Yu, vigilantly looking around. Whoosh! Just as the 8 of them were rushing towards the fateful poison grass, an air-piercing sound suddenly erupted. A half-mermaid was suddenly whipped away like a cannonball. His body was directly embedded into the rock wall. Be careful. As soon as Yu shouted, she saw half of a companion's body suddenly disappear. Then the other half of the body started to swing wildly. It wasn't until half of the fish's tail flew out and blood splashed everywhere that everyone was shocked. Han Fei was horrified. Fortunately, he didn't take action just now. It turned out to be an invisible creature. Isn't it a bit too strong? Yu shouted. You accent? The guardian creature is invisible and extremely strong. Yu roared. Attack with all your strength. Immediately, Yu, and a half-mermaid at the same time put on a golden battle suit, holding a golden harpoon, and white flames were burning on their bodies. As soon as Han Fei saw this, a faint red light appeared in his eyes. However, this invisible guardian creature couldn't detect the flow of spiritual energy. In fact, this guardian creature had no spiritual energy at all. Not surprisingly, this creature not only had no spiritual energy, but also no vitality. It should be some kind of undead creature. Only in this way could it appear and disappear unpredictably like Little Black. Although it had already attacked its opponents, no one could even find its position. However, in Han Fei's eyes, a vague huge figure appeared in his field of vision. That thing was completely transparent. He could only see the range of its water ripples, but couldn't see its body. But Han Fei secretly took a breath. According to his observation, it was nearly 100 meters long. It was ridiculous that those half-mermaids tried to fill the gap with numbers. In Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name, Ghost Eel, Introduction, a hybrid product of the Ghost Serpent and the Mystic Shadow Eel. It has awakened the bloodline of the ancient ghost. It likes to eat death energy and is afraid of vitality and soul attacks. It has sharp teeth of nothingness that can bite all weapons below the level of divine weapons. The power of its tail can reach 6 million kilograms. Level 53, Quality, Legendary, contains spiritual energy, 0 points, effect, inedible, collectible, teeth of nothingness, unabsorbable. Seeing this information, Han Fei was shocked. Isn't this F*King invincible? Without spiritual energy, its body is nothingness. As for the fear of vitality, is this a weakness? As for soul attacks, Han Fei was not Zhang Xuanyu. He hadn't practiced any soul attack techniques. At this moment, Han Fei couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Before, in order to find Xia Xiaochan, he didn't learn the soul-splitting technique, and then he didn't have a chance to learn it. This meant that he seemed to be helpless against this legendary creature. Han Fei touched the ghost eel, and then his whole body was suddenly blasted out like a cannonball. Han Fei was directly embedded into the rock wall. "You gone?" Yu Ji was shocked. Through the vibration of the water ripples, can I vaguely see where this guardian creature is? In the rock wall, the corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. So what if I find it? That F*King huge body is nearly 100 meters long. Only a fool would fight it head-on. The creature embedded into the rock wall with Han Fei struggled to run out at this moment and let out a strange cry. It seemed to have fused with some companion spirit, and a bunch of tentacles appeared on its body. Yu Ji seemed to have found the location of the ghost eel. She raised her harpoon and injected spiritual energy into the divine weapon. Behind her, a golden, glowing, water-shaped phantom burst out and pointed the harpoon at the ghost eel. It had to be said that Yu Ji could indeed find the location of this invisible fish by using the vibration of the water ripples. This method was effective. At this time, Yu Ji shouted, "Use soul attacks." Ordinary attacks have no effect on this guardian creature. Among them, a half-mermaid's eyebrows flickered, and a strange light rushed out, bombarding the ghost eel with soul attacks. Oh, it seemed to be a roar from hell. At the same time as the half-mermaid's eyebrows flickered, Han Fei saw a water shadow directly swallowed the half-mermaid. Crack! The half-mermaid was directly crushed, which made Han Fei's scalp go numb. 2 half-mermaids had already been bitten to death by this thing. At this time, the void trembled. The half-mermaid that had been bitten to death before appeared again at this moment, his face full of horror. This person roared, "This guardian creature is too terrifying. It needs to be killed by soul attacks." Everyone was speechless. "Do we need you to tell us that?" Yuli had just launched a soul attack, but he was swallowed by the guardian creature like a jelly bean. A half-mermaid summoned an associate spirit, which burst out a strange sound wave and rushed straight at the ghost eel. Oh, bam! This person was whipped away by the ghost eel's tail and rolled on the ground for more than 500 meters. As soon as he stood up, his protective amulet suddenly broke out, and then the protective amulet burst into pieces, leaving only half of his body. Seeing this scene, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. How the F*** could they fight this thing? Were soul attacks useless? Who could withstand this big guy's attack? Yi was horrified. Damn, this guardian creature is more than level 50. Everyone, use all your secret methods and use spiritual attacks on it at the same time. Where are you guys? Han Fei thought it was not good for him to be embedded in the rock wall all the time. So Han Fei suddenly roared, used his harpoon to the extreme, and stabbed it into the void. Yu Ji shouted, "Idiot, go back." Bam! Han Fei was embedded in the rock wall again and vomited a mouthful of blood. However, he didn't care at all and licked his tongue in satisfaction. "Okay, I've been whipped twice in a row. I don't have an immortal seal, and I fought with all my strength. Everyone saw it. Let me lie down for a while." Two half-mermaids who were about to be bitten to death appeared again through the immortal seal. At this moment, a strange white light flashed between the eyebrows of the 7 half-mermaids at the same time, which turned into soul attacks and blasted at the ghost eel. Oh, who? The rock wall was shattering, and the white underground crystal was broken all over the ground. Sure enough, although the ghost eel was powerful, it still couldn't withstand the soul attacks of 7 half-mermaids. After this attack, it was seriously injured. However, in Han Fei's eyes, this ghost eel had already pounced on a guy who had just used an immortal seal. The man was gasping for breath and was about to counterattack again. However, suddenly, the spiritual energy in his body suddenly stagnated. At that moment, his mind went blank. Did someone use a sealing technique on him? Who among the sea demons cast a sealing technique on him? Before he could figure out, the ghost eel bit him into 2 pieces again. Immediately afterward, a terrifying aura descended. This person actually had a dying strike. However, as soon as the terrifying aura appeared, it couldn't find its opponent at all. Therefore, the dying blow only lasted for a breath's time before disappearing. Yu-Ji shouted, "Yuli, get out of the way." Yuli was one of the half-mermaids who had just used an immortal seal. Yu-Ji felt that this ghost eel must have a high degree of intelligence. In fact, Yu-Ji guessed right. This ghost eel did choose to fight these 3 people. However, its target was not Yuli but another guy. Puff! Han Fei's sealing technique was activated again. How could the half-mermaids expect this? Just as they were about to attack, the spiritual energy and demonic energy in their bodies stopped flowing, and they were immediately bitten to death. Immediately afterward, the frightened Yuli fled in panic because he couldn't find the location of the ghost eel. Yu roared, "Don't run. Everyone, let's launch another soul attack." Just as Yu roared, Yuli's body also stagnated, and he was bitten into 2 pieces again. In the blink of an eye, 3 of the 7 powerful half-mermaid heavenly talents were killed, which made Han Fei very happy. Han Fei secretly said, "Good job, big brother. Kill that troublemaker Yu, by the way. I can help you." Second, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 748. Han Fei didn't care about the 3 dead half-mermaids at all. However, the remaining ones were more difficult to deal with. How could it be so easy to kill them? For example, at this moment, Yu-Ji's eyes turned white, and a soul storm rolled up in the seabed cave. The other 3 almost simultaneously burst out an amazing soul shock power. This surprised Han Fei. Could it be that all half-mermaids could use spiritual attacks? Although the intensity of their attacks varied, the fact was that they could use all of them. And among humans, there were very few people who could use spiritual attacks and soul collisions, including Han Fei himself. Except for the war soul art and the soul-splitting technique that he hadn't learned, he didn't know anything else. Of course, the ghost eel was not invincible. After being hit several times, even a legendary creature couldn't withstand such violent spiritual attacks. This was the 3rd time it was hit, and rocks shattered all over the ground. Yu-Ji yelled, "Yugon, go grab the spiritual plant treasures. We'll stop this creature." When Han Fei heard that, he immediately felt awful. Do you know how poisonous that thing is? Me? I'll be poisoned if I touch it. If ordinary people don't have an antidote, they will die in 3 days. Are you kidding me? However, Han Fei thought for a moment. He didn't need to fight. No matter how weak the ghost eel was, it could at least kill one more. As for himself, Han Fei was dripping with blood all over. He struggled and climbed out of the rock wall. After rushing out, he rushed directly to the fateful poison grass. How could the ghost eel let Han Fei succeed? With a roar, its huge tail whipped over. Among them, a half-mermaid's back was shining with golden light, and a big water-shaped hand, clenched into a fist, smashed at the ghost shadow of the ghost eel. Bam! Boom! The huge force of 6 million kilograms directly slapped the half-mermaid far away, and nearly half of his bones were broken. However, Yu followed closely behind, slashing the ghost eel's tail with a golden harpoon. In Han Fei's perception, a small part of the tail had been split open. Wow, this Yu is quite fierce. Yu shouted. Yugon, grab the spiritual plant treasure quickly. If you dare to make any strange movements, I'll kill you immediately. Han Fei rolled his eyes. Kill the ghost eel first. Anyway, I'm just a bystander. You want me to dig up the fateful poison grass? Hee hee, is there something wrong with my brain? Han Fei took the opportunity to stretch out a hand to the fateful poison grass. In the next moment, a barrier appeared. Then, without caring about anything else, Han Fei simply lay on the ground and twitched. Yuji shot out a bit of starlight to block the ghost eel's bite. Her whole body hit the rock wall, bleeding from her 7 orifices. But seeing that Han Fei was twitching, Yuji immediately shouted, "Not good. There's something wrong with that spiritual plant." Han Fei struggled to get up, only to lie down again. Then he said with difficulty, "There's poison." In Han Fei's body, the heaven spirit detoxifying insect had already moved. A streak of gray mist had already been dragged in front of it, and it was happily devouring it mouthful by mouthful. Han Fei, on the other hand, lay beside the fateful poison grass, feeling that the spiritual energy and vitality in his body were being devoured bit by bit. He was speechless. Haven't the spiritual energy of Yuji and the others been exhausted yet? In such a fierce battle, the spiritual energy stored in their bodies should be almost exhausted, right? Sure enough, as Yuji shouted, everyone activated the secret method almost at the same time. Hum. In a milky white spiritual shock, a half-mermaid was hit by the head of the ghost eel beside Han Fei, and the barrier protecting the fateful poison grass was broken. The half-mermaid glanced at Han Fei lying on the ground, and his face changed slightly. This thing is poisonous. When he looked at his hands again, he suddenly found that his hands were already gray and black. The half-mermaid roared, "Not good, it's highly poisonous. This thing is highly poisonous." However, it was too late. The ghost eel slapped Yuji and Yu away and bit at the half-mermaid again. With just one bite, it swallowed the half-mermaid. Han Fei felt his blood freeze. This ghost eel is really fierce. It fought 7 half-mermaid heavenly talents alone because it was not afraid of ordinary attacks. This strength was already extremely strong. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, are all creatures above the legendary level so terrifying? If the 9-tailed mantis shrimp and little gold were level 53, it should be very easy for them to beat these people, right? Not to mention the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, he might be able to whip them to death one by one. As for little gold, he could kill 2 or 3 of them with a lightning blade, as if it were child's play. See God's possession. A huge phantom of tens of meters high suddenly emerged from Yuji's body, holding a dazzling golden harpoon phantom, and in an instant, the ghost eel was nailed not far away from Han Fei. Han Fei was shocked. The ghost eel was poked and revealed itself. What kind of attack was this? See God's possession? What was the difference between it and the Sea King? However, Yuji didn't seem to be feeling well either. Her whole body was spurting blood wildly, as if she had suffered a serious backlash. The half-mermaid who had just been bitten to death ran out of the void at this moment. He had used his immortal seal, and his face was extremely ugly at the moment. Han Fei sighed secretly. Sure enough, a level 53 legendary creature like the ghost eel was going to be defeated in the end. It was not that it wasn't strong enough, but that it was already terrifyingly strong. However, its opponents were all heavenly talents, and each of them had 2 lives and could launch soul attacks or mental attacks. How could he win? No matter how strong it was, it couldn't withstand so many attacks. Another half-mermaid with half of its bones broken rushed over and stabbed at the ghostly half-mermaid. The golden harpoon plunged into the head of the phantom of the ghost eel. Yu vomited a mouthful of blood and said, "Okay, this damn thing is dead. The question is, what kind of spiritual plant is this? Why is its toxicity so strong?" However, as soon as Yu relaxed and was about to walk forward, a sudden change happened. The phantom curled up and the ghost eel directly rolled up the 2 of them, and a terrifying power suddenly broke out. Puff! Cough, puff! Cough! At that moment, Yu didn't even have time to react and saw his two companions being rolled into meat patties. After making this last blow, the ghost eel stopped moving as if it was really going to die at any time. Han Fei's eyes flickered and he thought to himself, "Anyway, they're all ghosts which should be invisible. I'll take them." Seeing that he succeeded, Han Fei immediately said to the ghost eel via voice transmission, "Big guy, I'm a good guy. I'll save you now. Don't resist. When the time is right, I'll help you kill these guys." The ghost eel trembled slightly, and Yu didn't dare to rush forward but stood dozens of meters away and observed secretly. "I'll take them." Immediately, the huge phantom of the ghost eel disappeared out of thin air. This directly startled Yu and the seriously injured Yuji. When the other person ran out of the void, he immediately swooshed away from the fateful poison grass. Where are the creatures? Han Fei was speechless. There were only 3 of them left. Yuji was covered in blood and dying, leaning against the rock wall, panting. Yu and the other person were in relatively good condition. At this time, Yu, instead of studying the fateful poison grass, came to Yuji. He tilted his head and inserted a harpoon into Yuji's heart. Han Fei's pupils constricted. What the F***ck is this? Yu glanced at the other half-mermaid and said, "Yu Fei, can you continue to tolerate Yuji? Kill her. Take her sea-swallowing seashell, and you and I will rise." Yu Fei was stunned. "This? Yuji has an immortal seal." Yu sneered. "So what? She used the sea god's secret method in that blow just now, which consumed too much energy. Even if the immortal seal can protect her from death, it can't guarantee that her strength will recover. In the end, she is still extremely weak." Yu Fei's eyes flickered. "What should we say then?" Yu said coldly, "She died in the battle. Yu Li and the others have all died in the battle. Do you think we can't find an excuse?" Han Fei continued to lie on the ground, thinking to himself, "This Yu is not easy to deal with. I'm afraid he has wanted to kill Yuji for a long time." The void trembled, and Yuji tried to run as soon as she appeared. However, another terrifying sea god strike broke out and directly nailed her to the ground. Yuji's eyes were a little unfocused. You are so cruel. Ha ha. Haven't you always been high and mighty? Haven't you looked down on me? You don't take me as a human being. Do you regret it now?" Yu Fei held the harpoon, hesitating. He knew that at this time, Yu had almost no strength to fight anymore. Should he take the opportunity to kill Yu? However, whether it was Yuji or Yu, they both had Dying Strike. That power might be useless against the ghost eel. However, for him, he was almost unable to resist it. Yu looked back. Throw Yuji onto the spiritual plant barrier and poison her. Yu was not stupid. If he killed Yuji, it would inevitably trigger the Dying Strike. At that time, he wouldn't be able to survive. However, if he poisoned Yuji, then the Dying Strike might break the barrier, wouldn't it? Yuji was seriously injured and said with difficulty, You will be judged for killing your own kind." Bam! Yu patted Yuji's head with his harpoon. "Who do you think you are? What happened to your usual high and mighty demeanor? I will step on your dead body and become one of the leaders of the new generation." Yuji was knocked out by Yu's harpoon. Han Fei was speechless. It turned out that the sea demons were not harmonious with each other. Sure enough, where there was intelligent life, there would always be competition. Yu grabbed Yuji's hair and dragged her towards the fateful poison grass. On the way, he glanced at Yu Fei. Smart people should know how to choose. Yu Fei immediately bowed his head. Yu Fei is willing to follow Lord Yu. Ha! Puff! While Yu was laughing, his neck was suddenly pierced. He glanced at Yu Fei, then looked down at Han Fei lying on the ground, and his eyes widened. Han Fei waved his hand. "Are you surprised or not?" Yu. Third night watch. Asking for votes. Monthly votes. Although it's the third night watch, don't panic. The story is very long. Take it slowly. In the recent critical period, everyone should try not to go out. More and more people are infected. End of this chapter. Chapter 749. Yu is dumbfounded. This feeling of falling from the top made him feel as if he had been struck by lightning. How could this damn Yugon still be alive? Had this damn Yugon been pretending all this time? However, at that moment, he had already used the amulet. Therefore, he didn't even have time to dodge Han Fei's blow. Han Fei felt the void tremble and perceived that there seemed to be a strange force pulling Yu Yu out. Except for the last time he experienced the immortal seal, this was the closest Han Fei had ever felt the immortal seal. Huh, a spatial fluctuation? Before he had a chance to feel it, the spatial fluctuation disappeared. Of course, Han Fei knew that it was some kind of power of the immortal seal that dragged Yu Yu into a certain mysterious domain. Unfortunately, if he could master this kind of spatial fluctuation, would he be able to ignore the opponent's immortal seal and directly kill him? As soon as Yu Yu died, Yu Fei was shocked and wanted to escape from Han Fei. However, how could Han Fei let him do that? When Han Fei attacked Yu Yu, he had already locked Yu Fei with the void chain. Little Fatty took the opportunity to suck Yu Fei's limbs. Han Fei's harpoon had already been shot out. Terrifying power gathered, and in the blink of an eye, it had pierced through the ultra-quality battle suit on Yu Fei's body. Who are you? Yu Fei was extremely shocked. Han Fei's attack was too fast. At the moment when Yu Yu died, he was already bound. Are you King telling me that this is something that a newly awakened Azure Sea Blue demon can do? Han Fei swam dozens of meters with Yu Fei on his head, and the golden seal slapped him on the forehead. Clang! Yu Fei felt his head explode. But this was nothing. The surrounding seawater turned into numerous water blades, directly rolling Yu Fei in. As for Han Fei himself, he had already taken back Ninetails and Little Fatty and hid far away, in case there was a dying strike in this guy's body. Even if he could block it, it was unnecessary, right? Besides, at this time, the void trembled, and Yu Yu was about to come out. With a thought from Han Fei, Little Gold appeared. The moment Yu Yu came out, Han Fei looked at him with a smile. You're here? Bye-bye. Lightning blade. Sizzle. Swish. Yu Yu was dead. He didn't know why Yugon was so strong even before he died. A terrifying power burst out. Yu Yu was obviously not an ordinary person. The dying strike in his body was terrifying. As soon as Little Gold slashed out the lightning blade, Han Fei had already recalled Little Gold and ran to the entrance. However, the dying strike seemed to have locked on Han Fei and was directly branded on him. Boom! The golden seal blocked in front of Han Fei, and Little Fatty attached him. Han Fei was still blown away, feeling that his bones had been broken. Son of AB *TCH, thank goodness Little Fatty is there. But are dying strike and those things so worthless? Why does everyone have one? Han Fei withstood the attack and was slightly injured. He had underestimated the power of Yu Yu Shun, who was probably not much worse than Yu Ji. Cough, cough. After vomiting a little blood, Han Fei injected some spiritual energy into the unconscious Yu Ji's body. Not long after Han Fei spat out that mouthful of blood, it was drawn to the fateful poison grass by a force. At this moment, he felt that the vitality in his body was still flowing away. However, Han Fei didn't panic. Vitality was something that could be replenished. Forge the universe was full of nourishing spiritual energy. If he ate a little every day, he would be back soon. Besides, all the dead people's vitality was stripped away again, and their bodies were gradually drying up. As for Yu Ji, Han Fei first took out all the sea-swallowing seashells of everyone, including Yu Ji, took away all the good things, and then stuffed them back into the bodies of these people. Finally, Han Fei injected a trace of spiritual energy into Yu Ji's body. After doing all this, Han Fei thought for a while, picked up the harpoon, and hit Yu Ji's head hard again. Fine, you'd better wake up later. At least wait until the fateful poison grass becomes the fateful holy grass. Everyone's vitality was converging towards the fateful poison grass. After an hour, Han Fei could already smell a strong medicinal fragrance. Huh, it's poisonous. Han Fei discovered that the fateful poison grass, which was crazily absorbing vitality and transforming into a mature form, was actually releasing poison. Although the poison level was not very high, Han Fei wasn't sure if Yu Ji could withstand it. Han Fei didn't want Yu Ji to die. It was not that he was afraid of being chased by sea demons, but that he needed someone to take him out of here. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know where to go in the vast sea. Besides, Han Fei was very curious about the 10,000 Demon Valley they mentioned. As a sea demon, it shouldn't be a problem for me to hide in there for a few days, right? 6 hours later, half of Yu Ji's hair was white, and her skin was a little dry and cracked. 6 hours later, Yu Ji's hair was all white, and her skin was full of wrinkles. Han Fei pondered for a while, and with a thought, his hair began to turn white. But how should he deal with the wrinkles on his body? While thinking, Han Fei hit Yu Ji's head hard again. After that, Han Fei stuffed a spiritual fruit into Yu Ji's stomach to replenish her vitality. After doing all this, he went to check the treasures taken from Yu Yu and the others one by one. 1,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. It's useless. Keep it. Oh, 6,000 caddies of spiritual spring. Only more than 6 million points of spiritual energy. It's still far from enough. Yo, Trivariant Golden Ginseng. This is a good thing. It contains a lot of energy and is suitable for deducing the void fishing art. TSK, 30 high-quality spiritual stones. Why are you so poor? You are a heavenly talent. Is this all you have? Ultra-quality material? No. It seems to be more advanced than the ultra-quality material. This was Yu Ji's sea-swallowing seashell. There was a stone shining with purple light in it, called purple glow crystal, which turned out to be a material that could be used to refine divine weapons. However, it was too small, not even enough to make a dagger. See God's 9 consecutive strikes? Han Fei grabbed a jade slip, which should be the upgraded version of the sea spirit's 3 consecutive strikes that he had grabbed before. It had reached the heaven level, low-quality level. Han Fei thought for a while. He couldn't take everything, especially in Yu Ji's sea-swallowing seashell. He'd better leave the divine weapon material to her. There'd be plenty of opportunities in the future. After Han Fei divided all the spoils, he got a total of 1,200 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, 19,000 caddies of spiritual spring, 360 spiritual fruits, low-quality spiritual stones, plus mid-quality and high-quality spiritual stones, and a total of about 16 million points of spiritual energy. As for the various materials, Han Fei basically didn't take any. He couldn't be a sea demon all the time. If he entered the 10,000 Demon Valley and killed a few people, he could get as many as he wanted. Not only that, Han Fei also stuffed some things from Forge the Universe into their sea-swallowing seashells. They were not garbage, but they were no different from garbage in Han Fei's eyes. However, Han Fei seriously suspected that these sea demons would choose to use the good things themselves as soon as they encountered them. After all, no matter how good the things were, it was safest to stuff them into their stomachs. Otherwise, it would be terrible if he lost in battle and it was snatched away by someone else. Han Fei calculated that the looting this time, plus the spiritual energy he had stored, totaled more than 52 million points. It seemed to be a lot, but in fact, it was still far from enough. If he wanted to deduce the void fishing art, he was still short of 48 million points of spiritual energy. This was far from enough. He had to leave some spiritual energy for himself, right? Han Fei glanced at Yu Ji, who was still lying on the ground. He wondered if she was out of her mind. If she wasn't, she would probably take him to the 10,000 Demon Valley, since he was the only one who survived, right? In the city of sea demons, there should be a lot of good things, right? One day later, the fateful poison grass emitted a refreshing fragrance. Han Fei was overjoyed. He had already prepared a box containing a supreme-grade spiritual weapon and was waiting for it. The fateful holy grass, of course, couldn't be eaten now. This thing contained infinite vitality. If he ate it now, it would be full of vitality. When Yu Ji woke up, she would definitely suspect him. The boundary of the fateful poison grass was opened. Han Fei knew that this thing had matured and had changed from a highly poisonous thing to a great tonic. Han Fei picked this fateful holy grass without hesitation. However, a small piece of rhizome was left. This fingernail-sized rhizome couldn't be underestimated. It was rich in vitality. Then, Han Fei looked around, only to find that all the sea demons had been turned into real dried fish. Han Fei smacked his lips in disgust. Suddenly, his body shook and blood gushed out. Then, he lay on the ground next to Yu. After lying on the ground for a few minutes, Han Fei thought for a while, sent some spiritual energy to Yu, and stuffed a spiritual fruit into her mouth. Then, Han Fei ran back to his original position, lay down, and killed himself. Okay, it should be almost done now. Let's see when you can wake up. Han Fei lay on the ground for another day. One day later, Yu only felt a sharp pain in her head, as if she had been whipped countless times with a stick. She felt that her bones were about to break. Yu covered her head with one hand and suddenly found that something was put on her body. Looking down, she found that it was a foot resting on her belly. This was Han Fei's deliberate action to prevent Yu from forgetting him. She immediately flew into a rage and was about to kill this shameless man. But when she saw that it was Han Fei, his chest heaving up and down, pressing on her, Yu froze for a moment and quickly got up. Yu turned her head and looked around, only to find that the seabed cave was in a mess, and there were 4 dried fish lying on the ground in different shapes. Yu covered her head and turned her head with difficulty, only to see that Han Fei's hair was white and there was blood around him that had condensed. But after all, Han Fei didn't become a real dried fish. However, she was a little surprised. Why did Han Fei's hair turn white? Then, when Yu looked at her hair again, her face suddenly changed. Her hair was all white, and her skin was a little dry and cracked. Dried fish, Yu pushed Han Fei. Seeing that it didn't work, she turned to look at the place where the poisonous grass was. As a result, she found that the spiritual plant had disappeared, leaving only a nail-sized rhizome, still exuding a little vitality. However, the vitality was no longer strong. After a careful examination, she found that there was strong lightning sweeping here. She couldn't help frowning. How could there be lightning power here? And it was so strong. However, Yu found that Yu was not here. Where was he? Suddenly, Yu's body turned cold, and she gritted her teeth and said, Yu, how dare you betray the clan? Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 750. Han Fei pretended to be unconscious for a while, and it wasn't until half a day later that he slowly woke up. The first thing Han Fei did when he woke up was to ask, I'm not dead. Yu was sitting cross-legged to recover. The few remaining roots had been eaten by her, which replenished her vitality. Hearing this, Yu suddenly opened her eyes. You survived? Since you didn't die at that time, did you see anything? Han Fei pretended to have a headache and was confused for a long time. It seems that some creatures got in from the outside and fought with Yu, and then, I don't know. Han Fei was not stupid. Yu and the others definitely had life tablets. Yu's death couldn't be hidden. Since he couldn't hide it, he had to have a reasonable explanation. If Yu didn't believe him, he would kill her. If Yu could believe him, he would find a way to follow Yu back to the 10,000 Demon Valley to eat and drink, and then wait for an opportunity to escape. Han Fei's plan worked. Now it all depended on Yu's reaction. However, Yu frowned. So, this is why you didn't kill me? No. Maybe he left in a hurry and left a small piece of spiritual plant treasure behind. That spiritual plant contains strong vitality, so you and I can survive. After explaining to herself, Yu looked at Han Fei. Have you never seen an azure sea blue demon as lucky as you? Han Fei said slowly, pretending to be dead is a necessary means for marine creatures to survive, and at that time, I was seriously injured. Yu immediately closed her eyes and felt it. Once again, she checked the shocking mark left by the thunderbolt. Very strong. Could Yu only resist the power of this lightning? Suddenly, Yu saw a piece of scale fragment in the corner, which was scorched. Yu frowned. Yu's scale. Is he dead? But his body is not here. No matter whether he is dead or not, let's go back to the 10,000 Demon Valley first. For 2 days in a row, Yu and Han Fei shuttled in the sea, fighting various marine creatures. Han Fei found that when sea demons encountered some schools of fish, they would also run away. It turned out that the life of sea demons was not good. At this moment, Yuji was biting a sea clam with her teeth, which disgusted Han Fei. I'm here to look for opportunities, and you're feeding me this? Holding the sea clam in a daze, Han Fei heard Yuji say, "Yugon, why don't you eat? You don't like clams?" Han Fei's eyelids twitched, and demonic chi spurted out of his mouth. Under Han Fei's careful control, the clam was consumed by demonic energy and cooked. Then, Han Fei went up and tore off a large piece. Although I don't eat it raw, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Medium rare is a must, right? This is the self-cultivation of an actor. Yuji froze for a moment, swallowed the meat in her hand in a few bites, and said in surprise, "A creature that can spit out demonic flames. Yugon, it seems that you were not an exotic creature before your awakening, right?" Han Fei bit the clam blankly. "I don't know." Yuji smiled. "Don't worry, you awaken late, but your strength is already at the high-level sea demon realm. Usually, as long as you master some combat skills and know how to absorb some resources, you can easily reach the peak of the demonization realm." Oh, seeing Han Fei's silly look, Yuji smiled and thought to herself, this azure sea blue demon is indeed a bit silly. However, I don't know if I survived this time because of his help. Judging from the way he was following me now, I'm 80% sure that he has chosen me. Yuji thought that Han Fei shouldn't be an ordinary azure sea blue demon. His talent and potential were top-notch. If he is trained well, he will become a powerful warrior. After another 2 days, the two of them experienced many hardships and finally came to the legendary 10,000 Demon Valley. When they were more than 20,000 kilometers away from the 10,000 Demon Valley, a group of sea demons had already found Yuji and Han Fei. These sea demons all seemed to know Yuji. When they saw Yuji, they were particularly excited. Someone said, "Master Yuji, I heard that something happened to you, so I have sent dozens of people to look for you." Someone followed behind Yuji. "Master Yuji, I'm glad you came back safely." Someone asked, "Master Yuji, didn't Master Yu come back?" Someone looked to Han Fei. "Master Yuji, who is this inferior sea demon?" As soon as Yuji heard someone mention Yu, she was shocked. Yu, this be *starred, took advantage of me and used my immortal seal. The reason why he didn't dare to kill me directly was that he was afraid of the dying strike on me. It was also thanks to this that he was able to survive. But that guy was so vicious that he tried to poison me with a spiritual plant treasure. Fortunately, other creatures broke in later. Otherwise, I would have been dead for sure. Yuji shouted, "Get out of my way. I'm going to see Grandpa Yutong and then teacher." Han Fei was quite speechless as he listened to their conversation. All the sea demons were surnamed Yu. Why do they have such a name? Wouldn't there be many people with the same name? After a while, Han Fei was dumbfounded. Yuji commanded all the way, "Yugon, go and inform Elder Yubo that I have returned safely." Han Fei was stunned. "How the hell do I know Elder Yubo?" But in the next moment, a half-mermaid shouted, "Yes, Master Yuji." Han Fei was speechless. How could there be someone with the same name as Yugon? Then Yuji commanded again, "Yugon, go to the fish settlement and bring me 5,000 caddies of spiritual spring. Hurry up." Han Fei was stunned again. Is there someone with the same name? Then another half-mermaid jumped out. "Yes, Master Yuji." "Yugon, go, yes, Master." "Yugon, go, yes, Master." At that time, Han Fei almost fainted. Why the F*** are you all called dried fish? Can't there be someone who isn't called Yugon? "Yugon, go back with me." Han Fei was thinking, only to find that Yuji was looking at him. Han Fei was full of question marks. "Yes, so many." "Yugon." Yuji smiled and said, "Our 10,000 Demon Valley has relatively few names. Just Yugon, Yupai? You, Ita Yui." Han Fei was speechless. "You don't know many names? Can't you come up with more? What kind of F***king name is this?" With a shout, a pile of dried fish ran out. "Who the F*** can tell who is who?" Yuji said, "When you shout, the last echo of your voice falls on the person you're talking to." Han Fei, when he first entered the 10,000 Demon Valley, Han Fei was shocked to find that this was really a large canyon, a winding canyon like a dragon mountain range. On the rock walls on both sides of the canyon, there were holes everywhere. Outside every cave, there were glowing vines or seaweed of various colors, rendering the entire canyon colorful, as if it was a strange and dazzling new world. In the open water, there were a large number of luminous creatures, such as luminous jellyfish, light bulb-like fish, starfish shining with fantastic brilliance, and so on. From time to time, Han Fei saw some sea demons swimming with creatures on their shoulders, some sea demons practicing harpoon combat skills in the water, some sea demons sparring with each other, some sea demons lecturing a group of sea demons, and some sea demons shopping on both sides of the rock wall. However, Han Fei didn't find any red demons or inferior manfish here. As far as the eye could see, they were all half-mermaids and half-mermaids. When Yuji swam past with Han Fei, many people were looking in this direction, which made Han Fei uncomfortable. Yuji said to Han Fei, "Red demons and ordinary inferior manfish are generally not allowed to enter the 10,000 Demon Valley. More than 2,000 kilometers away from the 10,000 Demon Valley is called the Blood Sea Valley, where red demons and ordinary sea demons live." Han Fei didn't speak and followed Yuji all the way. From time to time, half-mermaids and half-mermaids riding various creatures came and then passed by. When Han Fei followed Yuji to the bottom of the valley, he saw that the bottom of the valley was very prosperous. All kinds of caves were carved in various colors, hung with a variety of luminous creatures, and various names were written on the caves. For example, Yusan Weapon Shop, Yu Spirit Fruit Shop, Yugon Gourmet Shop. Outside some caves, there were even glowing rays welcoming guests. These rays could also release electricity. Blue electric arcs surrounded them, like the thunder in the night sky in sci-fi blockbusters. What's more, the shape of some caves was very similar to human buildings. There were plaques, doorways, thresholds, and even couplets. Han Fei seemed to have entered a world of science fiction. What impressed him most was that the half-mermaids especially liked things that glowed. No matter what kind of light it was, red, green, blue, or purple, as long as it could glow, they would use it as decoration. After swimming through this winding canyon, there was an incomparably large and deep pit inside. There were two extremely tall mermaid statues, which were at least 1 kilometer high. Each of the two half-mermaid giant statues was holding a harpoon in their hands, crossed with each other. They used 2 big harpoons to form a huge door. When Han Fei followed Yuji past, he found that he was even smaller than a thorn on the tip of the harpoon. It was conceivable how big this thing was further inside. He could see the giant cylindrical palace in the deep pit that was countless times larger than the snow god's temple. To be precise, it was not like a palace, but a circular building. 1 ring was connected to another, a total of 9 rings, and a large blank space was exposed in the middle where the heads of 5 giant statues could be seen. Yuji lived on the top floor of the 3rd row inside the ring. Yuji took Han Fei and swam all the way. Many people scanned Han Fei with their perception. Han Fei was also a little flustered. Don't be exposed. Otherwise, he would be in someone else's territory and it would be hard for him to run away. However, this 3 transformation wondrous book was indeed a heaven-level, divine quality, secret method. Along the way, many half-mermaids greeted Yuji and didn't notice Han Fei's problem, until Han Fei followed Yuji to her residence. The top cave covered an area of about 300 square meters, and there were barriers inside and outside. Yuji glanced at Han Fei. "You stay here and wait for me to come back." Second update. Monthly votes. Wait a minute, I'm revising it. End of this chapter. Chapter 751. Han Fei was also quite surprised by Yuji's attitude. Yuji didn't seem to give up and intended to help him to the end. Did Yuji just want him to follow her? Han Fei entered Yuji's cave alone and then found that around the cave, there were all kinds of luminous seaweed and vines, and even some luminous shells flashing. However, sea monsters didn't seem to have the concept of furniture. In Yuji's cave, there was only a blue glowing stone platform, which looked like a large piece of emerald. Behind the emerald platform was a huge shelf 5 or 6 meters in size. However, This shell was not alive. The shell was open and covered with some seaweed, which might be where Yuji slept. In addition to these, Hanfei saw a large tank of spiritual spring, a pile of pearls, and a pile of messy half-mermaid jewelry hanging on the rock wall. Is this where the half-mermaids live? Does Xia Xiaochan also live in such a place? Han Fei suddenly grinned. Probably not. Didn't Chun Huangdian say? Xia Xiaochan is Princess Pearl. The place where she lives should be much more luxurious than this. After all, in terms of status, Xia Xiaochan was much higher than Yuji. Taking advantage of Yuji's absence, Han Fei leaned against the rock wall in the dark, closed his eyes, and began to study the soul-splitting technique. This battle with the ghost eel made Han Fei realize that there were many strange and extremely powerful creatures in this world. What if he faced the ghost eel alone? Would he be bitten to death by that thing? Although the war soul technique could also attack the soul, it would consume too much energy after all. Besides, one attack probably wouldn't be able to kill the opponent. The soul-splitting technique, in the final analysis, was a kind of soul-splitting technique. Its purpose was to split one's own soul, invade the spiritual world of other creatures, and thus deprive other creatures of control of their bodies. After a while, Han Fei was surprised to find that the soul split by the soul-splitting technique could be taken back. This meant that he could temporarily separate his own soul and take it back after it was used up. Han Fei couldn't help but think, if I killed Yuji's soul, wouldn't I be able to pretend to be Yuji? However, Han Fei immediately gave up this plan. So what if he pretended to be Yuji? He didn't know Yuji's living habits, nor did he know her messy fighting style, nor did he know the people here. If he really took over Yuji's body, he would probably be seen through in a minute. However, since a saber had already been destroyed, wouldn't he have a second doppelganger if he gave some to the Overlord? Half an hour later, Han Fei tried to split a little bit of his soul. It was probably less than 1,000th of his soul. However, when his soul was split, Han Fei felt that his head was pricked by needles. No, it shouldn't hurt. When I saw that guy in the Snow God Palace, he seemed to have split his divine soul quite easily. I'm definitely not skilled enough. After a dozen attempts in a row, Han Fei managed to hold back the excruciating pain and split a tiny part of his soul. It was a strange, blue flame-like thing, extremely small. With a thought from Han Fei, he could move at will, and the speed was very fast. Buzz. Feeling that the seal of the cave was slightly trembling, Han Fei summoned his soul back into his head. Yuji swam in with a gloomy face as if she had been bullied. Han Fei leaned against the wall, pretending to be dumb. Everyone was dead except for Yuji. Anyone would suspect Yuji. Yuji glanced at Han Fei. Yu and Yu Fei are both dead. Han Fei looked at her calmly. Oh. Yuji glanced at Han Fei in surprise and then said, "Someone knew that I brought you back and said they would interrogate you." As she spoke, Yuji stared at Han Fei. Han Fei stared at Yuji without speaking. Seeing that Han Fei didn't respond, Yuji said, "However, I refused." Do you know why I refused? Han Fei shook his head. Yuji's eyes flickered. From the first time I saw you, I knew you were not an ordinary Azure Sea Blue demon. As soon as you were awakened, you were level 48. When you faced Yu and Yu Li, there was no fear in your eyes. When you practiced the sea demon combat skills, your speed was extremely fast, your body was very adaptable, and your strength was not inferior to that of a half-mermaid. Han Fei thought, not good. Could it be that Yuji had found something? I'm a pure sea demon now. However, after talking for a long time, Yuji looked at Han Fei. So, actually you have been awakened a long time ago, right? Han Fei was stunned. What the hell? I've been awakened a long time ago. Why didn't I know that? Yuji said, you have been awakened a long time ago and gained spiritual wisdom. However, when you were awakened, you hadn't transformed yet. Before you transformed, you had been growing. When you transformed, your wisdom was already very high, right? Han Fei's body stiffened and he thought to himself, this woman is really good at guessing. However, she still thought that he had transformed and didn't know that he was a human. Yuji saw Han Fei's movements and then said leisurely, there are only a few possibilities for this situation. Either you are an exotic mutant creature, or you are a legendary. Han Fei was speechless. Han Fei was lost for words. When did I become a legend? Yuji said matter-of-factly. Of course, I may also be a mysterious creature. However, mysterious creatures shouldn't and can't transform into azure sea blue demons. And it's difficult for exotic mutant creatures to awaken too high wisdom. So, you are a legendary creature, right? Han Fei said in his heart. Yes, yes, whatever you say. I'm a legendary creature. Han Fei was stunned for a long time and then nodded. Yes. Yuji let out a long breath. Sure enough, it was just as she expected. If Han Fei was a legendary creature, he would be much more advanced. The development potential of such a creature couldn't be underestimated. If he wasn't careful, he could grow into a commander-level figure. Yuji handed over a jade slip. Han Fei took it and scanned it with his perception. Sea Spirit, True Scripture, Demon Level, High Quality, Introduction, a universal cultivation method for sea demons. Open up all the demon veins in the body. If you succeed, you'll have a chance to cultivate a sea spirit body. Deduced art. Sea Spirit Codex deduction cost. 0/5 million. Han Fei glanced at it, and his face was full of disdain. Only those who succeed will have a chance to cultivate a sea spirit body. I don't want this rubbish cultivation method. But Yuji said solemnly, this is the orthodox cultivation method for sea demons. During this period of time, try to cultivate. After a while, you will go to the front line with me. Han Fei frowned. Go to the front line? Isn't that going to the Scattered Stars Island? Han Fei couldn't help asking. Where's the front line? Yuji said, the front line is the first front line between us sea demons and human beings. Human beings are an extremely hateful creature. They invade the sea, kill our people, occupy our territory, and plunder our resources. You must remember this. If you meet human beings one day in the future, you must kill them. Otherwise, you will be the one to die. Han Fei pretended to be puzzled. Are they very strong? Yuji seemed to think of something and then nodded heavily. Very strong. Human heavenly talents are extremely powerful. They can have more than one companion spirit. They can have two. Besides, human beings are very cruel and specialize in killing. When you meet human beings, you will know. Han Fei sneered in his heart. Do you think we human beings are like robbers? What? Did you eat your big yellow croaker? The sea is so big. You can't go anywhere else, but you insist on going against the Scattered Stars Island. But on the surface, Han Fei still nodded solemnly. Got it. Yuji nodded. Come with me. I have to cooperate with the investigation during this period of time. You can't leave or you'll die. Yuji took Han Fei all the way to the depths of the canyon where they first entered the 10,000 Demon Valley. This canyon, floor after floor, was full of sea demon shops. The place Yuji took Han Fei to was called Yuji Weapon Shop. Obviously, this was opened by Yuji herself. Han Fei was speechless. This woman can forge weapons? The moment he entered the shop, Han Fei sensed a slightly violent demonic chi and abundant spiritual energy. In the shop, there was only one half-mermaid. He seemed to be a little old. This person was holding a big sea clam and pouring magma-like liquid onto a stone platform. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Isn't this a harpoon? On this stone platform, there was a harpoon model. After the rolling liquid was poured into the model, an array lit up, and the liquid was flowing, converging, and finally condensing in a strange way. Han Fei was speechless. Is this the refining method of a harpoon? Isn't this too simple? Seeing Yuji coming, the half-mermaid who was pouring the liquid grinned and said, Miss Yuji, you're finally back. I heard that a while ago Yuji swam to the refining table and waved her hand. Uncle Fu, I'm fine. This is my friend Yugon, an azure sea blue demon who has just transformed. He will be helping you for a period of time. Uncle Fu laughed. Oh, an azure sea blue demon. How long has it been since I last saw one in the 10,000 Demon Valley? Okay, it's good for him to help me refine weapons. I'm too busy alone. Han Fei really wanted to roll his eyes at this old half-mermaid. You're too busy? Just pour the materials into the mold. I can refine dozens of these things a day. Is there a problem? Yuji looked at Han Fei. You can refine weapons or cultivate here for the next few days. I'll come to you when I come back. Han Fei nodded. Okay. Yuji turned around and left in a hurry. Han Fei didn't know what she was going to do, but now he seemed to have sneaked into the 10,000 Demon Valley. Since Yuji was not here, it seemed that no one could control him. As soon as Yuji left, Uncle Fu's face changed. Hey, boy, let me teach you how to operate the Refining Divine platform. The 3rd chapter. Monthly ticket. There's one more chapter. I'll continue to revise it. End of this chapter. Chapter 752. Han Fei didn't know that Uncle Fu, who was fine just now, became fierce as soon as Yuji left. He looked as if he was going to eat Han Fei. Han Fei resisted the urge to kill him. After all, this was the territory of sea demons. He had to keep a low profile. If he couldn't, he would deduce the 3 transformation wondrous book to a higher level. When he became more powerful and no one could see through him, he would kill this guy. Han Fei glanced at Uncle Fu coldly. How do I do it? Seeing that Han Fei was so cold to him, Uncle Fu was so angry that he bared his teeth and said coldly, An azure sea blue demon dares to be arrogant in the 10,000 Demon Valley? You'd better stay here. Otherwise, don't blame me for throwing you into the Sea Demon Coliseum. Han Fei was still arrogant and said coldly, How do I do it? You. Uncle Fu snorted angrily, thinking this kid was brought here by Yuji herself. Things were not clear yet. He didn't know whether Yuji would be fine or not. I'll teach him a lesson in the future. Humph. Listen carefully. I'll only say it once. After listening to Uncle Fu's rigid explanation for a long time, Han Fei finally understood. It turned out that he only saw the surface. It turned out that the refining method of sea demons was very different from that of human beings. It didn't mean that it was easy for sea demons to refine weapons. This so-called refining divine platform was bought with a lot of money. It was said that Yuji spent 10,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid to buy it, which was very valuable. The so-called artifact refining divine platform was actually an artifact refining platform filled with artifact refining formations. With the help of these arrays, it could help liquid materials condense quickly and distribute the materials evenly. As for the sea demon weapons refined by this method, there were differences in the quality of the weapons refined according to the difference in the refining materials. Yuji's platform could only be used to refine high-quality demonic weapons. It was mainly provided for the ordinary inferior manfish with a little talent in the Blood Sea Valley next door. As for the business of the red demons, there were more advanced refining shops suitable for the red demons. However, although the refining divine platform was different, the method of smelting materials and removing impurities was basically the same as that of human refiners. It turned out that Uncle Fu also smelted materials in this way. Therefore, he could only refine about 20 high-grade demon weapons a day. Uncle Fu threw 2 jade slips to Han Fei and said grumpily, I'll give you 3 days to learn these 2 refining techniques. At the back, there was a cave for storing materials. You can stay there for the time being. Don't disturb me when I'm forging. Han Fei accepted the jade slip and read it. Then he was stunned. Why were they also the spirit fusing technique and the spirit polishing technique? Could it be that the humans and the sirens were on good terms? Even the forging technique was shared with him? Uncle Fu urged him, Go. What are you waiting for? Han Fei raised his head and glanced at him. What if I can't finish it in 3 days? Uncle Fu sneered. You can't cultivate it? If you can't learn it, go to the Sea Demon Coliseum. The Myriad Demon Valley doesn't feed idlers. Han Fei stared at him for a moment before slipping into the cave without a word. This thing doesn't need to be practiced at all. Do you think it's difficult for sea demons to refine artifacts? They're just like human beings. Seeing Han Fei leave, Uncle Fu sneered in his heart. 3 days? I'll give you 3 months. Show me if you can master it. Because in this material room, there were piles of materials. Therefore, the entrance of the cave had to be sealed. Uncle Fu thought that since Han Fei was brought here by Yuji, he wouldn't steal the materials. But what if he did? Then he would have a reason to drive him out. He really didn't understand why an azure sea blue demon was qualified to live in the 10,000 Demon Valley. He didn't know what Yu was thinking. Was it because of his growth's spiritual heritage? Throughout history, the number of Azure Sea Blue demons who had really taken this path could be counted on 2 hands. Among them, no more than 3 had reached the peak stage of the sea spirit realm. So, he wanted to become a sea spirit? It was like a fool's dream. Besides, Yu couldn't even take care of herself now. Would he be implicated in such a big thing? Han Fei entered the seal and stepped in. Immediately, a vibrating sound wave appeared. If an ordinary person entered, he would make a noise immediately. But when Han Fei took a closer look, he saw a warehouse full of garbage materials. Yes, in his opinion, these were garbage. Now, he had to add the word ultra quality to anything he refined. However, most of these materials were of medium and high quality, and there were even a few ultra quality materials. Han Fei was definitely not interested in them. However, what surprised Han Fei was that there was a large vat of nearly 50,000 caddies of spiritual spring here. This was 2F** king much. If he stole all of it now, the spiritual energy in his body would immediately exceed 100 million. Han Fei was tempted. However, it was only more than 50,000 caddies. If he stole this spiritual spring, he would have to run away. In this 10,000 demon valley, if he ran out, he would definitely be stopped. Son of a bee ***, I can only see it but not eat it. Suddenly, Han Fei's eyes lit up. Along the way, there were at least 7 or 8 blacksmith shops, if not 5 or 6. If I can steal these shops, Han Fei immediately became excited. What cultivation? He directly threw the 2 jade slips into his swallowing seashell and then began to ponder about this seal. A kind of trigger seal related to sound waves. It doesn't seem too troublesome to modify. Han Fei thought of the ocean book. He hadn't studied that thing yet. However, it was a collection of large arrays. For a while, he couldn't figure out what to do. However, this kind of sound wave type seal seemed to have a special chapter in the spirit gathering scripture. He could totally try it. Every day, Uncle Fu would only come to pick up materials twice and wouldn't give Han Fei any guidance. At this moment, Uncle Fu said coldly, "More than 50 pieces of materials are missing. Do you eat materials? Do you need so many?" Han Fei said coldly, "Yes." Uncle Fu snorted. "You're only allowed to use 50 pieces a day at most. More than this number, my small shop won't support you." When Uncle Fu went out, Han Fei formed an array with one hand. It only took him an hour to find the prototype of the seal in the material warehouse. Now, he was thinking about a way to crack it. What if he could break this seal quietly without making any sound? Han Fei's idea was very simple. That was to set up another seal in front of this one. In fact, a soundproof array could do it. However, this seal had a shock effect and seemed to be connected to the cave. Then he still needed to block the shock effect. So, another seal was needed to eliminate this shock effect. 2 days. Han Fei's eyes lit up. It's done. 3 days later, Han Fei was pretending to be refining. Suddenly, Uncle Fu walked in and said with an unfriendly look, "Come out with me and bring out 50 pieces of mid-quality materials." Han Fei walked out, went to the refining divine platform, and casually threw out 50 pieces of materials. He grabbed them casually and didn't care about their quality at all. Uncle Fu took a look and immediately said angrily, "I told you to bring out 50 pieces of mid-quality materials. What did you bring out? Low-quality materials, high-quality materials, and even an ultra-quality material." Han Fei glanced at him indifferently. "You didn't teach me." When half-mermaids were angry, they usually bared their teeth. Maybe they thought that the fiercer they bared their teeth, the angrier they were. Han Fei was very straightforward and made Uncle Fu swallow the words that he had prepared. Uncle Fu asked, "Then why didn't you tell me?" Han Fei glanced at him. "You just told me to practice, but you didn't let me know the materials." Uncle Fu was amused. Okay, you're very stubborn, aren't you? Then go ahead and refine. Show me." The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly, and he grabbed the materials and started refining blindly. Anyway, in the end, he threw out something that was not evenly fused and the impurities were removed. He poured it on the refining divine platform and finally condensed it into a low-quality demonic weapon. Uncle Fu was stunned for a moment. Is this kid really that talented? In 3 days, he refined a low-quality demonic weapon for the first time. Han Fei sighed slightly. He was used to refining and didn't know how to refine anything lower than low quality. This was indeed a bit troublesome. Wasn't he being too high-profile? However, Uncle Fu shouted angrily, "Look, what did you refine? A low-quality demonic weapon. I have so many good materials, but you only refined a low-quality demonic weapon for me? F*CK off. You're not needed here." Han Fei said indifferently. "Yuji asked me to stay here." Uncle Fu sneered. "I am a boss. Do you think you're so great just because you got through Miss Yuji's back door?" Han Fei tilted his head and glanced at Uncle Fu. "You have no reason to drive me away. If you drive me away, you will offend Yuji. So, why do you want to drive me away?" Han Fei was very calm. He was guessing Uncle Fu's motives. If Yuji was the chosen one, then Uncle Fu should please her. Uncle Fu sneered. "You are just an azure sea blue demon. What do you know? I am dedicated to my work. Ignorant and incompetent people like you don't know anything." Han Fei narrowed his eyes. "You betrayed Yuji, didn't you?" Uncle Fu was taken aback. How'd this kid know? Suddenly, Uncle Fu broke into a cold sweat. Was this Yugon sent by Yuji to spy on me? Was it exposed that I secretly contacted other heavenly talents? But no, this kid clearly stayed in the material warehouse for 3 days and didn't come out. How'd he spy on me? Uncle Fu said coldly, "Nonsense. Come with me to the Sea Demon Coliseum. Don't think you're great just because you're an azure sea blue demon." Swish! As soon as Uncle Fu said this, Han Fei stabbed him with his harpoon. The speed was so fast, and the force was so fierce that it directly pierced through the defenseless Uncle Fu and nailed him straight to the rock wall. Uncle Fu said in horror, How? How dare you? Roar! Somebody help me!" While Uncle Fu was panic-stricken, a centipede phantom appeared and pounced on Han Fei. Han Fei suddenly pulled out the harpoon, instantly activated the impermanent golden halberd, easily flicked the centipede away, and stabbed it with all his strength again. Even though Uncle Fu was wearing a battle suit, he was still hit by Han Fei's harpoon and hit the rock wall. And that big centipede. Han Fei stabbed it backhand, and demonic energy surged out, directly piercing its head and killing it on the spot. Han Fei tilted his head. "You are so old, but you still haven't reached level 50. What a waste. Let's make a bet to see who will die first." Uncle Fu was horrified. He found that he was wrong. Yuji kept this azure sea blue demon alive for a reason. This guy was too strong. Although he hadn't reached his peak, he almost nailed him to death with a backhand. Besides, this guy's eyes were extremely fierce. He didn't feel anything in the face of killing and was even more unscrupulous. In the 10,000 Demon Valley, as an azure sea blue demon, he seemed to dare to kill him. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. He couldn't wait for Yuji to come back. He needed to get himself away from Yuji as soon as possible. It seemed that something big was going to happen. All of this gave Uncle Fu the feeling that he was crazy. The 4th chapter. He really needed the support of monthly votes. Yes, the protagonist wouldn't return to the Scattered Stars Island for the time being. There were still a lot of things waiting for him to do. End of this chapter. Chapter 753. Just when Uncle Fu thought he was going to die, Han Fei suddenly put away the harpoon and glanced at him indifferently. It doesn't matter whether you betrayed Yuji or not. You can run, or you can find someone to stand up for you. It doesn't matter, as long as you don't provoke me. Han Fei thought carefully. After all, this was the territory of the sea monsters. If an expert really came, it was hard to say whether he could conceal his identity or not. Besides, it had nothing to do with him whether Yuji was betrayed or not. Now, it wouldn't be a problem for him to have a showdown with Uncle Fu. It could even be said that this could give him a good cover, so why not? Uncle Fu asked in horror, "You're not going to kill me?" Han Fei tilted his head. "Why would I kill you?" Uncle Fu's eyelids twitched. "Aren't you Miss Yuji's man? Don't tell me you are also..." Han Fei said expressionlessly. I have nothing to do with Yuji. Who are you? What do you want? Did you betray her? None of this was important to me. If you can properly tell me about the myriad Demon Valley, I can even pretend that nothing has happened. Uncle Fu's pupils constricted. You killed my companion spirit. What makes you think I'll believe you? You are a refiner. It makes no difference whether you have an associated spirit or not. Uncle Fu's brain was working furiously. He was thinking, who on earth is Han Fei? An Azure Sea blue demon didn't even care about Yuji's favor? Logically speaking, if he grabbed him and handed him over to Yuji, he would definitely value him more. However, the Azure Sea blue demon didn't seem to care about it at all. Uncle Fu swallowed his saliva. It's not that I betrayed Miss Yuji, but it's a big deal this time. So many talents had died, but Miss Yuji was the only one left alive. There had to be an explanation for this. Miss Yuji couldn't protect herself now. I don't think I can keep this shop either. I'm just trying to protect myself. Han Fei nodded slightly. So, you want to kick me out? Uncle Fu, of course. I know you were brought back by Miss Yuji. If that's the case, then you're definitely being watched by the experts. If anything happens to you, I'll definitely die too. Han Fei didn't say anything. It seemed that the sea demons were not united. According to Uncle Fu, Yuji left in a hurry a few days ago. She must have been investigated and was going to take the experts back to that secret realm. But Han Fei sneered. Can they find anything? Unless those half-mermaids could reverse time. Otherwise, how could they guess that it was he who killed Yu and the others? However, a ghost eel certainly couldn't help Yuji get away with it. The matter of the second guardian was pretty much a guess. In that case, logically speaking, they should be asking him questions. As for why he didn't look for her, there could be many reasons for this. Either these experts looked down on him, or they wanted to verify Yuji's words, or something else. Anyway, he was left here now, so he shouldn't be able to leave. However, Han Fei didn't intend to leave. It wasn't easy for him to come here. How could he just leave like that? In particular, he found that there were many refining shops here, and they were filled with all kinds of materials and spiritual spring water. How could he give up such a great resource? Han Fei looked at Uncle Fu. Since you said that someone has noticed me, how can you leave? Uncle Fu shrugged. So, I just want to drive you away. Han Fei nodded. You don't have the ability to drive me away now. So tell me about the 10,000 Demon Valley. Uncle Fu took a deep look at Han Fei. A newly awakened creature won't be as smart as you. You are not a simple azure sea blue demon. Han Fei didn't answer Uncle Fu, but asked, what I want to know most is why the 10,000 Demon Valley doesn't have a proper name. It's strange that everyone has called you gone. Han Fei was very distressed about the naming method of sea demons. Although Yuji said that when they called each other, some thoughts would fall on a certain Yugon. However, everyone had the same name, which was very unreliable. For example, two half-mermaids got married. The man called his wife Yugon, and the woman called her husband Yugon. Others asked what your wife was called. You said my wife was called Yugon. Others asked what your husband was called. You said my husband was also called Yugon. Isn't this a complete mess? Of course, Han Fei didn't know if there was such a thing as marriage among the half-mermaids. If not, how could they reproduce? Were these half-mermaids oviparous or viviparous? After being beaten up, Uncle Fu was speechless when he found that Han Fei only asked this question. However, at this moment, he couldn't beat them. Should I run? In fact, he was just thinking about it. At this moment, he could only answer honestly. In the 10,000 Demon Valley, only the heavenly talents who live in the 10,000 Demon Tower have names. The others don't have names. Previously, someone proposed that we use human names. However, this was rejected by the strong masters. So, we can only use the most common surname, you. Han Fei realized that the cylindrical superbuilding he saw was called the 10,000 Demon Tower. Suddenly, Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Why are you called Uncle Fu? Aren't you called Yu Fu? Uncle Fu changed his usual fierce appearance and answered honestly. Although we shouldn't have names in theory, it's fine to give ourselves a name in our own home. However, once my name is mentioned, people can still call me Yugon, Yu Pai, and so on. Han Fei said very seriously, call me Yu Fei from now on. Uncle Fu almost rolled his eyes. He wanted to tell Han Fei that there were many people who used this name. Besides, why do you care so much about your name? Han Fei asked again, what is the Sea Demon Coliseum? Uncle Fu answered honestly, it's a place where the half-mermaids entertain and fight. There is one in the 10,000 Demon Valley and one in the Blood Sea Valley. People who make mistakes are thrown into the Sea Demon Coliseum to fight various creatures. Han Fei thought to himself, isn't that similar to the human arena? He could imagine thousands of half-mermaids standing there, watching the bloody scene in the Coliseum, baring their teeth and roaring. Han Fei asked again, what is money? Uncle Fu thought to himself, sure enough, he has just awakened. He doesn't even know what money is. However, Uncle Fu was also surprised. Isn't this Azure Sea Blue Demon too smart? He seems to be quickly adapting to the Sea Demon Society. Uncle Fu said there are several kinds of money used by sea demons. One is high-quality pearls, which you should know. Hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from here, there is a sea of pearls. The pearl mussels there will produce pearls of various qualities. There are also spiritual stones and spiritual spring water. Han Fei found that the currency system of sea demons was similar to that of humans. High-quality pearls, spiritual stones, and spiritual spring water were all universal. However, Han Fei learned from Uncle Fu that the social system of sea demons was quite different from that of humans. Although the 10,000 Demon Valley was also full of shops, the system of the 10,000 Demon Valley was more like a dynasty system, with a clear hierarchy from top to bottom. The strongest person in the 10,000 Demon Valley was a super strong master named Blue Feather, known as the Feather King. It was this half-mermaid, like a king, who controlled and directed the major affairs of the entire 10,000 Demon Valley and the Blood Sea Valley. Under Blue Feather, there were 8 sea spirit powerhouses known as the 8 Wings of Blue Feather. Every single one of them was extremely powerful. According to Han Fei's basic strength, each of the 8 Wings of Blue Feather was actually a super strong law enforcer. And since he could rule them, it meant that Blue Feather was at least an explorer. And Yuji was the disciple of Yu Bei-chun, who ranked 6th among the 8 Wings of Blue Feather. Because she was a direct disciple of a law enforcer, Yuji's status was very high, above other half-mermaid heavenly talents. Why was it said that Yuji couldn't protect herself this time? Because Yu, who was killed by Han Fei, was favored by Yu Hanjia, who ranked 8th. It was rumored that Yu was going to be accepted as a disciple by Yu Hanjia. However, he died this time. It was because of this that Yuji was investigated. Otherwise, as a heavenly talent, he would die. No one would offend the super strong who ranked 6th among the 8 Wings of Blue Feather for him. Knowing this, Han Fei knew what was going on. He glanced at Uncle Fu. What should you do? Do it. Don't disturb me for 3 days. Take out the refining materials you need in advance. I'm going to cultivate for 3 days. If you dare to come in, I'll kill you. Uncle Fu's heart trembled. He believed what Han Fei said. The word kill made him get goosebumps all over his body. Yu Fu was speechless. Yuji really threw a big shot at him. Uncle Fu really didn't want to escape. Although in a sense, he had indeed betrayed Yuji. But if he was targeted by Han Fei and couldn't be driven away, he certainly couldn't run away. Therefore, he could only stay, hoping that Han Fei wouldn't mind so much. In the material cave, with a thought from Han Fei, Overlord stood at the door. After experiencing great pain, a wisp of blue soul drilled into Overlord's body. Immediately, a blue flame ignited in Overlord's eyes. It's King amazing. Han Fei stood in front of Overlord at the moment, looking at it as if he was looking at himself. And he controlled Overlord's body, so he could also see his original body, an ugly inferior manfish. He asked himself, what did it feel like to look at himself? Han Fei felt very strange, as if his soul had drifted out and was looking at him from the outside. He moved Overlord's body a little, and with a thought from it, he suddenly found that it seemed to still lack spiritual energy. After all, Overlord was a semi-divine weapon, which needed spiritual energy to activate. Han Fei thought for a while, took out a high-quality spiritual stone and stuffed it into Overlord's mouth. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 754. When he designed the Overlord, Han Fei didn't think that he could attach his soul to the Overlord. Therefore, Han Fei didn't leave any battery slots on the Overlord. It seemed that he had to make some slight changes to the Overlord. However, the first thing Han Fei was going to do was not to modify the Overlord, but to continue to deduce the 3 transformation wondrous book. He pretended to be an inferior manfish and entered the 10,000 Demon Valley with Yuji's help. Therefore, Han Fei didn't think that anyone would see through him in a short time. But now, hearing that Yuji's master turned out to be one of the 8 wings of Blue Feather, he was at least a super strong law enforcer. Immediately, Han Fei was a little worried. Of course, he had to deduce the void fishing art, but not now. Besides, as far as Han Fei could see, it wasn't a big deal to get 100 million points of spiritual energy. There were 50,000 caddies of spiritual spring behind him. He could steal it from 2 more refining shops. What was there to be afraid of? With a thought, Han Fei began to deduce. After a while, information popped up. Heaven extended art, venerable level, low quality. Note, observe the wonder of creatures evolving. There are also 3 ways to evolve and mutate, which can perfectly deduce these 3 kinds of creatures and simulate their aura. After the evolution, it will be no different from a real sea demon. After the evolution, it will take 3 days before it can undergo another evolution. Disadvantage 1. It's easy to expose the aura of the original body. Disadvantage 2. The heaven extended art can't control ordinary sea creatures. Mutated creatures, ordinary sea demons, red demons, half-mermaids that do start. Unknown deduction cost. 0/100 million. Han Fei glanced at it. As he expected, the effect of the 3 transformation wondrous book was even better after the deduction. It was already no different from a sea demon. Besides, the time for the evolution was increased to 3 days. Han Fei believed that if he continued to deduce it, the effect might be even better. However, that was meaningless. He wasn't going to live in the 10,000 Demon Valley. His motive for coming here was not pure. He came here mainly to fish for treasures. After he got all the treasures, he would certainly run away. At that time, as long as Yuji took him to the front line, he could kill Yuji and easily return to the human world. Seeing that he still had more than 2 million points of spiritual energy, Han Fei thought for a moment and entered Forge the Universe. Although he didn't allow Yufu to come in, it wouldn't be a joke if an accident happened. Next, he was going to use the Heaven Extended method to create an even more perfect little manfish. The process was painful and could not be discovered by others. 2 hours later, Han Fei fell out of the air, panting. The pain is much better. However, it was still very painful. Looks like it's best not to change your appearance for no reason. The next moment, the blue flames in the Overlord's eyes flickered. From the Overlord's perspective, Han Fei saw his current appearance, which hadn't changed much. However, in terms of temperament, it seemed to be on a higher level than before. Han Fei was silent for a while. Was there such an outstanding inferior manfish? Forget it. If Yuji thinks that I'm a legendary warrior, then I'll say that I'm a legendary warrior. It shouldn't be a problem. Han Fei glanced at the Overlord and felt that he should reforge it. He installed 2 grooves on the Overlord for spiritual stones. This way, his plan would be even more perfect. 3 days later, Han Fei walked out of the material room. As soon as he came out, Han Fei found that Yufu was not alone in the shop, but 2 level 46 half-mermaids. When the 2 half-mermaids saw Han Fei, they were also taken aback. A half-mermaid said in surprise, "Uncle Fu, where did this inferior sea demon come from?" Uncle Fu's heart skipped a beat. "Why don't you think before you speak?" Immediately, Uncle Fu said, "Well, Yu Fei is an azure sea blue demon. He was brought back by Miss Yuji herself." The 2 half-mermaids looked at each other and seemed to be a little surprised. "Huh, this is an azure sea blue demon? He does look more elegant than ordinary inferior sea demons. It seems that his demonic heritage should not be low. But why did Miss Yuji let an azure sea blue demon stay here?" Uncle Fu smiled. Of course, to learn refining. Refining? Him? Although the two half-mermaids knew that Han Fei was an azure sea blue demon, the contempt in their eyes didn't weaken at all. After all, azure sea blue demons were also a kind of inferior manfish, although their quality was better and they had more potential. However, they never thought that an azure sea blue demon could really exert that kind of extreme potential. If they had to believe that creatures could rise, the scarlet blood demon was more reliable. The so-called scarlet blood demon was the ultimate species among the red demons. Its status was equivalent to the status of an azure sea blue demon among the inferior manfish. However, scarlet blood demons were very rare, but not non-existent. Among the 8 wings of blue feather, there was a scarlet blood demon, ranked 7th, named Chishuahuan. He was the only super powerhouse who had become a sea spirit from a red demon. A half-mermaid said, "Hey, you Fei, right? Are you good at refining? Let's see if you can refine one." Yufu immediately explained, "Well, Yufei has just learned refining not long ago." "Okay." Just when Yufu was explaining, Han Fei suddenly said, expressionless and calm. Uncle Fu was taken aback and said to him via voice transmission, "You have only learned refining for 6 days. If you don't refine well, it may cause unnecessary trouble." Han Fei came to the refining divine platform in a few steps and glanced at the two casually. "What do you want to refine?" The two half-mermaids were stunned for a moment, and one of them sneered. "You're so arrogant. Do you really think you have a noble bloodline? Refine a high-quality battle suit for me." Han Fei nodded. "Materials?" Yu Fu asked. "Do you really want to try?" Han Fei ignored Yu Fu and looked at the half-mermaid. "Materials." The latter was annoyed by Han Fei's unreasonable attitude. The half-mermaid thought, "You're just an inferior sea demon. Why are you so arrogant?" With a wave of his hand, a pile of materials was thrown on the ground. I'd like to see if the legendary azure sea blue demon is really so talented." Han Fei ignored him. He grabbed with one hand, and a few materials were suspended in the air. In an instant, they were surrounded by spiritual energy and demonic energy, and he was quite proficient in spirit fusion. Yufu was taken aback by this scene. "Wait a minute. It wasn't like this 3 days ago." 3 days ago, Han Fei could only refine low-quality spiritual weapons. Could it be that this is really a different azure sea blue demon? But this speed is too amazing, isn't it? More than amazing. From the looks of it, Zhang Xian's forging skills and speed seemed to be even more proficient than his own. The two half-mermaids were also stunned. At this moment, they looked at each other. Is the azure sea blue demon really so powerful? It only took him 5 minutes to refine everything. The materials were poured into the mold of the battle suit on the refining divine platform like liquid. Han Fei thought it shouldn't be too exaggerated. It took him several times longer. But even so, it shouldn't be too slow. Yu Fu and the two half-mermaids were already dumbfounded. Yu Fu exclaimed, 3 minutes? The two half-mermaids were still astonished. Then they looked shocked. Is the azure sea blue demon really so strong? Han Fei raised his head and said indifferently, "Okay." Just as Yu Fu and the other two were shocked, Han Fei felt a perception sweep over them. "Sure enough, I've been targeted. But so what?" The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. He pretended to be a genius this time. How could an ordinary inferior manfish know the secrets of the 10,000 Demon Valley? The two half-mermaids didn't say anything and ran away after refining the demonic weapons. However, just today, Yu Fei, the azure sea blue demon, became famous. Since Han Fei came out, he didn't enter the material room again, but stood at the door of the refining shop, watching the half-mermaids coming and going. Many half-mermaids came to take a look curiously and then swam away. Not many half-mermaids stopped to talk to Han Fei. Someone occasionally frowned and muttered, "Why is an inferior sea demon in the 10,000 Demon Valley?" Someone was occasionally stunned. Azure sea blue demon? Of course, some people talked to Han Fei and asked if he was willing to follow them. Whenever this happened, Han Fei would point to the shop sign, and then no one asked. It turns out that he has already joined UG. Han Fei observed and saw 2 refining shops as far as he could see. Then, how many refining shops were there in this huge canyon? There's so many people. Han Fei was thinking, how can I steal the refining shops of those sea demons? I can't wait until there are so many people. It's best to wait until there is only one refiner. Besides, he needed to think about whether to kill the other party or not. If he didn't kill the other party, how could he steal the spiritual spring and materials without anyone noticing? If he set up an array, the Overlord would always appear. Would he be discovered immediately? Han Fei made up his mind to find an ordinary refining shop to try first. At most, he could kill the other party's refiner and break into the material room. Anyway, this was a one-shot deal. It depended on his own ability to take down several refining shops. Suddenly, Han Fei turned around and entered the shop. I'm going out for a walk. Will anyone stop me? Yu Fu froze for a moment. Go out? It's not a big problem. It's just that your identity is special. If no one leads you, you will definitely be interrogated. Han Fei looked at Yu Fu. I want to buy some spiritual fruits. Do you want to go with me? Yu Fu asked in surprise. Do you have money? Han Fei replied, no. Yu Fu second, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 755. Han Fei borrowed 1 million high-quality pearls from Yu Fu. How did Han Fei borrow 1 million high-quality pearls? Of course, he borrowed it from Yu Ji. However, this was definitely not a small number. When Han Fei first asked, Yu Fu was really taken aback. However, when Han Fei mentioned Yu Ji and then took out the red flame fire origin crystal, Yu Fu finally agreed. Han Fei had always known that the red flame fire origin crystal was not an ordinary thing. It could even activate the indestructible body art. How could it be ordinary? Yu Fu asked in astonishment. Where did you get this thing? Han Fei pondered for a moment. I got it in a secret realm. I think this thing should be extraordinary. In fact, when he took out this red flame fire origin crystal, Han Fei immediately felt that several perceptions passed by him. Han Fei thought to himself, since you've seen it, come and take it. However, to his surprise, no one came. Those who were secretly watching him didn't seem to be tempted. The canyon of the 10,000 Demon Valley was very long, more than 3,000 meters deep, and there were nests everywhere. Han Fei estimated that there were at least hundreds of thousands of half-mermaids here. What did this mean? This meant that there were hundreds of thousands, or even nearly 1 million strong people above the hanging fisher level here. If there was a full-scale war with human beings, it was really hard to say whether the Scattered Stars Island could resist it. What's more, some powerful half-mermaids could even control some marine creatures. This made the safety of the Scattered Stars Island even less guaranteed. Han Fei felt that the reason why the sea demons didn't start a full-scale war with human beings should be that there were many strong people among them. There were the 8 wings of Blue Feather here, but Han Fei believed that there were definitely much more law enforcers on the Scattered Stars Island than the so-called 8 wings of Blue Feather. The spiritual fruit shop was actually not far away. The first spiritual fruit shop was less than 10 kilometers away from Yu Ji's refining shop. However, Han Fei had a huge sum of 1 million spiritual fruits. In the blink of an eye, all the spiritual chi and spiritual fruits in the shop were sold out. Yu Fu was speechless. Why did you buy so many spiritual fruits? The effect of swallowing spiritual fruits is slow, and the degree of physical improvement is limited. Unless you eat them every day. Wow. Yu Fu looked at Han Fei in shock. Do you eat spiritual fruit every day? Seeing Han Fei's reaction, Yu Fu was dumbfounded. You're just an Azure Sea Blue Demon. I admit that you're a very strong and talented Azure Sea Blue Demon, but you are just an Azure Sea Blue Demon after all. Even top elites like Yu Ji didn't say that they needed to eat spirit fruits every day. You're an Azure Sea Blue Demon, and you want to eat spirit fruits every day? Han Fei smiled. I'm used to it. This sentence, like a thunder, fell in Yu Fu's mind. What did he mean by getting used to it? You haven't awakened in the past. Wait a minute. Uncle Fu looked at Han Fei in shock. You can clearly remember what happened before your awakening? Han Fei glanced at him indifferently and didn't speak. Yu Fu's eyelids twitched a few times, and he asked tentatively, Legendary? In Yu Fu's view, even after the awakening of exotic creatures, many of their memories before the awakening were vague. But Han Fei's words seemed to indicate that he remembered. Did this mean that Han Fei had awakened long before his transformation? No wonder. Yu Fu smiled bitterly. No wonder Yuji was so optimistic about Han Fei. He was a legendary creature. What did this mean? Legendary creatures were originally heavenly talents among marine creatures, and they usually even had some bloodline inheritance. Such a person had transformed into a demon. Of course, Yuji wanted to win him over. Only a creature of this level would be so arrogant and domineering, almost stabbing him to death with just a single word of disagreement. In the dark, several half-mermaids at the hidden fissure level looked at each other in surprise. Someone said, no wonder Yuji must protect this azure sea blue demon. If he really transformed from a legendary creature, then he is indeed worth cultivating. Someone smiled helplessly. No wonder this azure sea blue demon is so arrogant. It turns out that he is a heavenly talent. But how could a legendary creature transform into an azure sea blue demon? He can actually transform into a half-mermaid heavenly talent, right? The half-mermaids were also puzzled. Someone said, this news is very important. I'll go back and report it. It was just as Han Fei expected. Although spiritual fruits were not high in value, there were not many of them. In the 10,000 Demon Valley, there were more spiritual fruits than on the human side. It was just that the price gave Han Fei a headache. On average, a spiritual fruit cost about 800 to 1,000 high-quality pearls. This was much more expensive than in the Level 3 fishery and several times more expensive than on the Scattered Stars Island. Han Fei couldn't help asking, can 1 million only buy more than 1,000 of them? Yu Fu nodded. High-quality pearls are not good things. After all, the Sea of Pearls is over there. You could just go there to collect pearls. If it's spiritual stones, you can exchange for more. Han Fei finally understood. It turned out that the sea demons thought that high-quality pearls were far inferior to spiritual stones, so the price seemed high. Han Fei was speechless. If this is the case, I can exchange spiritual stones for high-quality pearls in the 10,000 Demon Valley, and then go back to the Scattered Stars Island to exchange high-quality pearls for spiritual stones. Wouldn't it be very easy to make a fortune? For others, this was difficult. But for Han Fei, it was very simple. However, he didn't know if a large number of transactions would attract attention. This was equivalent to money laundering. This kind of behavior, no matter in which social form, was not a good thing after all, and it should be noticed. However, Han Fei kept this matter in mind. If there was something he could do in the future, he could do something about it. After visiting 8 shops in a row, Han Fei finally spent the 1 million high-quality pearls. However, what Yu Fu didn't know was that Han Fei had an ulterior motive. He wanted to buy spiritual fruits because he wanted to observe the refining shops along the way. Yu Fu asked carefully, now are we going back? Han Fei shook his head. No hurry. Take me around. If there is no accident, I will stay in the 10,000 Demon Valley for a long time in the future, and many people will think that I am not qualified. I need to show them today. Yu Fu was helpless and thought to himself, what are you talking about? Sure enough, Han Fei's casual wandering behavior still aroused the disgust of many half-mermaids. Half an hour later, when Han Fei was about to go back, a half-mermaid landed in front of Yu Fu and Han Fei. Yu Fu took a closer look and immediately shivered. Nice to meet you, Miss Yuyan. At the same time, Uncle Fu said to Han Fei via voice transmission, Miss Yuyan and Miss Yuji don't get along very well. Smack! Yuyan slapped him. Yu Fu didn't dare to fight back. He took a solid slap and didn't even dare to resist. Yuyan glanced at Yu Fu coldly. Who allowed you to secretly send a voice transmission to him? The corner of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. The person I've been waiting for is finally here. Judging from the strength of this Yuyan, she must be a heavenly talent no less than Yuji. Han Fei's face immediately turned cold. What's the matter? Yuyan glanced at Han Fei lightly. Are you the azure sea blue demon that Yuji brought back? Han Fei said indifferently. Yes. Yuyan sneered. You're quite arrogant. Didn't your master teach you about the difference in status? As she spoke, Yuyan stretched out her hand and slapped him. Seeing this scene, Many passing half-mermaids stopped and watched this scene. However, to Yu Yun's surprise, Han Fei clenched his fist and punched at the slap. Neither of them moved. The ripples in the water rippled out for hundreds of meters. Yu Yun was furious. Well, how dare an azure sea blue demon attack me? You're courting death. As she spoke, Yu Yun attacked again. This time, the power of the slap was more than 3 times that of the previous one. Her hand turned into a shadow, trying to slap Han Fei to death. Han Fei didn't even bat an eyelid. He had many purposes for this trip: to buy spiritual fruits, to observe and memorize the refining shop, to wait for someone to pick on him. The reason why Han Fei was waiting for someone to pick on him was that he needed to prove his value as soon as possible. Otherwise, he wouldn't work for Yu Ji's small shop. Han Fei clenched his fist, and a terrifying power burst out from his fist, which was extremely domineering. Boom! In the second exchange, Han Fei still didn't take a step back, but Yu Yun took half a step back. Wow! Someone next to her exclaimed, "Impossible! Is this the power of an inferior sea demon?" Someone rolled his eyes. Are you stupid? How can this be an inferior sea demon? This is an azure sea blue demon, which is said to have a demonic heritage that can grow. Someone was surprised. I remember this person. Didn't he come back with Miss Yu Ji? Oh no, Miss Yu Ji is not here. This azure sea blue demon is going to be killed by Miss Yu Yun. You know, Miss Yu Yun is not inferior to Miss Yu Ji. Yu Fu hid in the distance, not daring to speak. He was secretly hoping that Yu Yun could kill this Yu Fei. Today, Yu Fei gave him a very bad feeling, even a little scared, and his associated spirit had been killed by him. It was impossible for him not to resent him. It was just that Yu Fei was quite proud and didn't seem to want to argue with him, so Yu Fu endured it. At this moment, he hoped Han Fei would die. Han Fei glanced at Yu Yun lightly and said expressionlessly, "Why did you attack me?" Yu Yun shouted coldly, "You offended your superior, so you must die today." Third, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 756. In the face of Yu Yun's scolding, Han Fei was not moved at all and even felt that it was just right. If the other party didn't want to kill him, how could he prove that he was a talented azure sea blue demon? Many people here knew Yu Yun, but no one knew Han Fei. They even thought that even if Han Fei was an azure sea blue demon, he was not qualified to live in the 10,000 Demon Valley. No one thought it was inappropriate for Yu Yun to kill people. Instead, they felt that this was a good show. Yu Yun slapped him again. This time, she used her full strength without holding anything back. In her opinion, Han Fei hadn't reached his peak yet. Even if he was strong, he couldn't be on par with her. Looking at the phantom of the giant hand slapping down, the seawater rolled to both sides, the water bubbles rolled, and a huge pressure came down from above. However, Han Fei still did not move. At that moment, he suddenly bared his teeth and raised his fist. A faint golden light soared into the sky. The peerlessly domineering punch pierced through the giant hand phantom. Han Fei glanced at Yu Yun indifferently, his teeth half open, looking extremely arrogant. The half-mermaid heavenly talent is just so buzz. These words were like a clap of thunder, ringing in the ears of the crowd. Is this still an azure sea blue demon? When had such an arrogant azure sea blue demon appeared in the 10,000 Demon Valley? The onlookers were dumbfounded. Yu Fu opened his mouth, his eyes full of disbelief. He suddenly remembered that Yu Ji and Han Fei both said that they were just friends. At that time, Yu Fu didn't take it seriously, thinking that Han Fei was arrogant and wanted to be friends with Yu Ji. But now, it seemed that the situation had exceeded his expectations. In terms of strength, Han Fei was even stronger than Yu Yun. Who was Yu Yun? That was a heavenly talent on the same level as Yu Ji. Although it was just a simple palm strike, it wasn't something an ordinary person could block. The crowd was shocked, and so were the people who were responsible for monitoring Han Fei. Someone mumbled, "Is an azure sea blue demon that has been awakened as a legendary creature really so terrifying?" The other person's face turned cold. That's not right. Although there are very few legendary creatures within 1,000,000 kilometers, it doesn't mean that they don't exist. There's no reason for them to be so strong. Below, Yu Yun's face was gloomy. You were a legendary creature? No wonder Yuji valued him so much. However, so what if he was a legendary? Why are you so proud of becoming an Azure Sea Blue Demon? As she spoke, Yu Yun took out the golden harpoon. This time, she was serious. It was fine that he was humiliated by Yuji. If he couldn't even defeat an Azure Sea Blue Demon under her command, it would be extremely embarrassing. Knowing that Han Fei was a legendary creature, Yu Yun knew that she couldn't kill him. However, this loss, he had to pay back. Today, he had to teach the other party a lesson. The nearby half-mermaids were also very angry at this moment, because the remark that the half-mermaid heavenly talents were just SOSO was a slap to their faces. Miss Yu Yun, kill him. Miss Yu Yun, you must kill him. So what if he's a legendary? Miss Yu Yun. Enraged, Han Fei stretched out his hand, and a harpoon appeared in his hand. Han Fei sneered. Are you going to bully me with your weapon? When Yu Yun heard this, the golden harpoon in her hand disappeared and was replaced by an ultra-quality, demonic weapon. At this time, Yu Yun was in a dilemma. They had to emerge victorious in this battle. Otherwise, it would only boost Han Fei's reputation. Yu Yun was going to win with one blow, so that she could show her strength and defeat Han Fei's arrogance. At that time, she could even let go of their previous grudges and take this person's virginity. As Yu Yun swung her harpoon, a giant whale phantom whizzed out, aiming at Han Fei and slamming into him. The surrounding water pressure was terrifying, scaring the surrounding half-mermaids and forcing them to retreat. But some people saw that Han Fei still stood still and didn't dodge, as if he was going to meet Yu Yun's attack head-on. Wow, is he crazy? This is Miss Yu Yun's blue whale riding technique. Someone bared his teeth. This Azure Sea Blue Demon is doomed. He thinks he can block the blue whale technique just because he's a legendary creature. Above, a supervisor frowned. Should we stop him? This Azure Sea Blue Demon may be extremely talented. Forget it. Yu Yun probably won't kill him. After all, this Azure Sea Blue Demon is new here. It's good to frustrate his arrogance. Some half-mermaid guards were rushing from a distance, trying to stop him. However, they were still a little far away. However, when the giant whale rushed towards Han Fei spun his harpoon frantically. Suddenly, a water shield was raised, and a slender water spout shot out horizontally. Someone exclaimed, "What? He actually wants to resist the blue whale riding technique with a water-spinning shield of the impermanent golden halberd?" Someone was speechless. Crazy. Does he know what he's doing? Yu Fu ran far away. He felt that this Yu Fei must have lost his mind. This is not a F***king combat skill at all. But then, everyone found that something was wrong. The harpoon in Han Fei's hand spun faster and faster, and a white vortex barrier directly covered a radius of 20 meters around Han Fei, making it impossible to see the harpoon at all. So fast. Is this the water-spinning shield? How much strength does this require? Damn, how can this kid be so fast? Han Fei had only learned a few sea demons combat skills. If he wanted to block this blue whale riding technique, he would have to use the majestic mystic spell. However, once he used it, he would expose too much of his strength. This impermanent golden halberd was only a demon-level high-quality combat skill, but it was actually not weak. In Han Fei's opinion, the defensive power of this water-spinning shield was very strong. As long as the speed was fast enough, the strength would be stronger. It shouldn't be a big problem to block this blue whale riding technique. Clang, the water-spinning shield was shattered, and most of the blue whale riding technique collapsed. At this moment, Han Fei was forced to retreat. Thud, thud, thud. While sliding in the water, Han Fei punched out 6 times in a row and slid out more than 300 meters before he finally stopped. The water was surging, and Han Fei grinned. Heavenly talent. Yu Yun's face had become extremely ugly. This Azure Sea Blue Demon is so strong. What a strong physique. He took my blow head-on and didn't even vomit blood? Yu Yun's eyes were cold, knowing that she was embarrassed. The blue whale riding technique was blocked by Han Fei with a water-spinning shield. Wasn't this embarrassing? However, Yu Yun immediately had an idea and scolded. "Who the hell are you? Even a legendary creature with a talent for strength can't take my blow. Who the hell are you? What's your purpose in hiding in the 10,000 Demon Valley? Everyone's attention was attracted by Yu Yun's words. They were all half-mermaids, so what was the difference between them and Yu Yun being slapped in the face? For a time, everyone stared at Han Fei, feeling that he shouldn't have appeared in the 10,000 Demon Valley in such a low-key manner. Ha ha! Han Fei bared his teeth, raised his harpoon, and sneered. Who told you that I am a legendary creature? Many people were dumbfounded. Even Yu Yun was confused. She scolded. If you're not a legendary creature, how can you be so strong? Han Fei suddenly raised his head and glanced at everyone. I am. Pass. Speak. For a time, countless people were rioting. They couldn't believe their ears. A half-mermaid asked the side stupidly. What did he say? What is he? Gulp. The person who was asked swallowed with difficulty. He said, he is a legendary creature. The few people who had been monitoring Han Fei were also shocked to the extreme. Legendary creature? If what Han Fei said was true, then Han Fei will be the first and only legendary creature in the history of the 10,000 Demon Valley. For a time, there was silence, and everyone held their breath. Yu Yin was dumbfounded, standing there blankly. Today, she just wanted to make some trouble for Yu Ji when she was not here. But Han Fei put away the harpoon, glanced at Yu Yun indifferently, and swam straight away. When passing by Yu Yun, Han Fei said lightly, I learned combat skills in less than a month. This sound, like a thunderclap, pierced deeply into Yu Yun's mind. The corners of Yu Yun's mouth trembled, and she murmured in a voice that only she could hear. Less than a month? Han Fei was like a proud swan, passing by a flock of ugly ducklings, holding his head high. He didn't think that showing such strength would not attract attention. Yu Fu was the first to come back to his senses. Seeing Han Fei leave, he hurriedly rushed behind Han Fei. He had a hunch that this would be an opportunity for him to rise. Perhaps this opportunity was more important than following Yu Ji. Yu Fu said flatteringly, Master Yu Fei, where are we going now? The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. Nowhere. Let's go back to the shop. I want to cultivate. At this moment, it was unknown how many people were rushing out to look for him, because anyone with a little intelligence would know that Han Fei's rise was unstoppable. Some people even thought that in the future, there might be one more 8 wings of blue feather. However, only Han Fei himself knew that the next step was to rely on his acting skills. The 4th chapter. I originally wanted to do 3 chapters today, but when I wrote, I realized that if I did 3 chapters, you guys would have to stop updating the training class, so I added 1 more chapter. I'm an emotionless writer, begging for monthly votes into this chapter. Chapter 757. In one day, the news that Han Fei was a legendary creature spread throughout the entire 10,000 Demon Valley. Those who heard it were all shocked and amazed. This also led to many people wanting to see what the awakened Azure Sea Blue Demon looked like. As a result, Yu Ji's weapon shop was overcrowded for a while. At this moment, Yu Ji's weapon shop put up a purchase limit, and only 50 high-quality demonic weapons were sold in a single day. However, Han Fei didn't need to refine weapons himself. He didn't want to refine weapons for sea demons. At this moment, he was waiting for someone to come, a real big shot to come. Han Fei was resting with his eyes closed, turning a blind eye to those perceptions and gazes. He was playing with the fish. In Forge the Universe, Little White wandered around leisurely. From time to time, it jumped back and forth among the leaves of the big red trunk, looking very happy. As for Little Black, at this moment, a burly figure silently appeared in a shop called Fish's Howl Weapons Shop. Han Fei lowered his head, looked at his hands, and shook his head slightly. Puppets are puppets after all. It's still impossible for them to be like humans. But fortunately, these arrays are simple. This person was Overlord. Beside the Overlord was an invisible black fish. As Overlord stepped his feet, 1 array, 2 arrays, 3 arrays, 3 arrays, 3 different kinds of seals. After doing all this, Overlord took a step and walked into the material room of this Yushao weapon shop. The moment Han Fei stepped into the seal, a buzzing sound rang and rippled out. However, at the same time, two of the three seals that Han Fei had set up were activated. Whether it was the sound or the vibration, they all disappeared at that moment. As soon as he entered, Han Fei saw two large piles of messy materials. A large tank of spiritual spring occupied 1/5 of the area of the room. It's also a high-grade spirit weapon shop. But why does this shop only have 30,000 caddies of spirit spring? Overlord was expressionless, but the blue flames in his eyes were flickering and jumping, looking extremely eager. Swish, swish, swish. In just a moment, the material room had become clean as if it had been licked. The Overlord looked at Xiao He, only to see Xiao He growing bigger and bigger. A huge mouth appeared and swallowed the Overlord whole. Let's go to the next shop. Less than half an hour after the battle with Yu Yun, several powerful perceptions swept over. When the pressure descended, the half-mermaids who had been surrounding Yuji's weapon shop fled in panic. Yu Fu was too scared to move. He had nowhere to run, even if he wanted to. He could only respectfully stand in the shop and wait for the arrival of the important person. 10 seconds later, a half-mermaid expert in a jade battle suit entered the shop. This person was full of strong, murderous aura, and the pressure was bursting out. Yu Fu was so scared that his body was trembling. Han Fei suddenly opened his eyes and looked at this person, just as he expected. In fact, he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He wasn't sure if his method would work. However, it shouldn't be a problem if he gave it a try. He thought that the person who came would be stronger than this one. But now it seemed that he wasn't. The pressure this person gave him was actually not strong. Although he was a hidden fisher, he was weaker than Xiao Zhan. The person stared at Han Fei for a long time, but Han Fei didn't dodge his eyes, let alone panic. The person grinned and said, "No wonder you are a legendary creature. Your determination and arrogance are beyond ordinary people's reach." This person shouted, "I am Yu Xian, Deputy Commander of the Blue Sea Demon Army of the Blood Sea Valley. You are an Azure Sea Blue Demon, born to be in my Blue Sea Demon Army. Follow me. You can choose any cultivation method or combat skill you want. As long as you go with me, you can directly command a regiment of 100 people. In less than a year, I will give you a regiment of 1,000 people. In the future, if you stand out, the position of Deputy Commander of the Blue Sea Demon Army will be yours." Han Fei blinked his eyes a few times, wondering if he had exposed too much. Legendary-type creatures were so popular? Han Fei didn't know what the Blue Sea Demon Army was, but he could guess it. Besides, this person was from the Blood Sea Valley, so he should be the Deputy Commander of the ordinary inferior manfish. According to Yu Fu, there must be more people in the Blood Sea Valley than in the 10,000 Demon Valley. It could be imagined how many ordinary sea demons Yu Xian had commanded. However, Han Fei didn't intend to leave the 10,000 Demon Valley. He complained in his heart, "I just want to sneak into the 10,000 Demon Valley and get as many benefits as I can. If I go to the Blood Sea Valley, I'll stay with a group of stupid ordinary sea demons every day. Am I crazy?" Han Fei was about to refuse when he suddenly heard someone sneer outside the cave. Yu Xian, you are indeed very fast, but is your Blue Sea Demon Army strong enough?" As he spoke, another strong man in a bright red battle suit came in. Although this person was laughing, the pressure he faintly exuded made Han Fei frown slightly. This person was probably no weaker than Xiao Zhan. This person entered the weapon shop and sat down on the refining divine platform casually. He stretched out his hand, and a crab leg appeared. He bit it off with a crack and began to chew it. Yu Xian frowned. "Yu Chun, why is your red blood demon army robbing an Azure Sea Blue Demon heavenly talent?" Yu Chen grinned. "Those red demon brats always think that they're strong. If a powerful Azure Sea Blue Demon suppresses them, their ferocity will be aroused." Then he looked at Han Fei. "I am Yu Chun, the Deputy Commander of the Red Blood Demon Army in the Blood Sea Valley. You know, they're all red demons. It is very difficult to suppress them. It depends on your ability. You are a heavenly talent and have your own pride. This is a great challenge. I wonder if you're interested?" Han Fei shook his head slightly. No. Yu Xian was delighted. What about me? Han Fei continued to shake his head. No. Their momentum erupted almost at the same time, and they both glared at Han Fei. Yu Chan said coldly, You said you were a legend, so you attracted our attention. But just because you're a legend doesn't mean you're a real genius. As an Azure Sea Blue Demon, where else can you go except for the Blood Sea Valley? Yu Fu was so scared by the sudden pressure of the two that he sat on the ground. Han Fei slowly got up and said with a firm look, I pursue the great Tao. Yu Xian and Yu Chen looked at each other, and Yu Chen suddenly smiled. Sure enough, creatures of different levels have different perceptions. In the entire 10,000 Demon Valley, there are no more than 100 people who have the confidence to say that they pursue the great Tao. You very good. Suddenly, Yu Xian and Yu Chen looked at the entrance of the cave at the same time, and then made way for someone. Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly and thought to himself, the person I've been waiting for is here. The person who came this time was not a half-mermaid, but a red demon. However, this red demon was very different from ordinary red demons. He was abnormally tall, and his legs had greatly evolved. He had no tail behind him, and he looked like a deformed human being. However, his face was no longer like a fish. Except for his particularly big eyes, he looked more like a human than any red demon Han Fei had ever seen. Yu Xian and Yu Chan said respectfully at the same time, Lord Huan. Han Fei's face changed slightly. Is this Qi Shue Huan, who ranks 7th among the so-called 8 wings of Blue Feather, and the only red demon in the 10,000 Demon Valley who has become one of the 8 wings of Blue Feather? Qi Shue Huan glanced at the two of them. You go back. Yu Xian and Yu Chan exchanged a look and responded, Yes, sir. No information appeared in Han Fei's eyes, but this person gave him a very bad feeling, very cold and fierce. Unlike Yu Xian and Yu Chan, they were able to release their auras. But this Qi Shue Huan had his own pressure. He stared at Han Fei, and Han Fei also stared at him. At this time, Yu Fu was already lying on the ground, not even daring to raise his head. Qi Shue Huan said, Actually, you should go to the Blood Sea Valley. The great Tao is invisible. Only after going through many hardships will you be more qualified to seek the great Tao. Han Fei didn't speak, and Qi Shue Huan continued, But don't worry. You have just transformed and don't have any combat skills. By the way, what's your inherited secret skill? Han Fei was silent for a moment, and, after thinking it over, he said, Overlord Body. Oh, Qi Shue Huan's expression changed slightly. What kind of Overlord Body? Try it. Han Fei pondered for a while and secretly activated the majestic mystic spell. Suddenly, his momentum surged and his strength increased exponentially. His strength directly climbed to the level of a peak-level hanging fisher. Qi Shue Huan grinned, revealing his fangs. I see. It seems to be stronger than the Sea King's secret method. Yes, you do have the right to be proud. Han Fei thought to himself. The Sea King's secret method can only increase one's luck by more than 2 times, not 3 times. I'm 5 times. How could it be the same? Suddenly, Qi Shue Huan suddenly asked, Did you kill Yu Yu and the others? Han Fei was not stunned. He had already considered this question. He shook his head slightly. No, there was a second guardian creature. Han Fei was not worried. Little Gold's lightning blade was really strong, and Han Fei didn't clean up the traces left behind. It was because of the power of lightning that Han Fei was not afraid of being investigated. Qi Shue Huan smiled. I heard from Yu Ji that you saved her. Han Fei shook his head. Not really. That creature didn't attack us. Qi Shue Huan grunted. Even if you're a legendary creature, I won't accept you as my disciple. Legend. Do you really want to enter the 10,000 Demon Tower? Han Fei frowned slightly. It was different for what he thought. He thought this person would want to take him away, but it didn't seem to be the case. Han Fei thought for a long time. Yes. Qi Shue Huan's eyes were shining. Where to? Han Fei said expressionlessly. Leave the 10,000 Demon Valley and find a way. Qi Shue Huan nodded with satisfaction. That's the nature of a legendary creature. If you want to stay in the 10,000 Demon Valley, I will definitely suspect that you have ulterior motives. It seems that you have made a plan. While Qishue Huan was chatting with Han Fei, suddenly, a roar of anger spread across dozens of kilometers. Bastard, there's a thief. First, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 758. Han Fei chuckled in his heart. In fact, Han Fei had already made up his mind when he asked Yu Fu to take him out. His purpose was to kill 5 birds with 1 stone. Buy spiritual fruits, observe the terrain, wait for people to provoke him, steal things, and wait for people to rope him, and Han Fei admired himself a little. He wanted to squeeze out the benefits he could get from sneaking into the 10,000 Demon Valley as soon as possible. However, Han Fei didn't expect that his plan would be exposed so soon. He had only robbed 2 refining shops and harvested a total of 59,000 caddies of spiritual spring, which was less than 60,000 caddies, which was less than 60 million spiritual energy. However, he got a lot of refining materials. Those were the spiritual energy reserves of a sea monster refining shop, which were easily stolen by him. It was impossible to say that he didn't make money, but these materials were useless to Han Fei. In the future, it wouldn't be easy to sell such a large number of materials. Therefore, he could only sell them slowly. However, the noise was so loud that even Qishue Huan was alarmed. At the moment when Qishue Huan looked out, Little Black, who was more than 30 kilometers away, stopped swimming and leaned against the rock wall outside a spiritual fruit shop. Immediately afterward, there was another roar. Someone roared, "Not good. Someone robbed my refining shop. All the materials and spiritual spring are gone." The half-mermaid was so angry that he vomited a mouthful of blood. Han Fei was speechless. This is a bit hard to deal with. He thought that when he attracted a lot of people's attention, he could rob at least 5 or 6 shops with Little Black and Overlord. But who would have thought that he would be able to rob at least 5 or 6 shops with Little Black and Overlord? Han Fei knew that he wouldn't be able to rob the 3rd shop. At this moment, many refining shops should have been alerted, and he might not be able to rob them in a short time. However, Han Fei didn't panic. This time the robbery was fruitful. If 60 million points of spiritual energy were not enough, he would be too greedy. Qishue Huan frowned slightly and said to the entrance of the cave, "Go check it out." Someone took the order and left. Qishue Huan looked back at Han Fei. This kind of thing is very rare in the 10,000 Demon Valley. Don't worry about it. Let's continue. Qishue Huan said, "You will leave eventually. If that's the case, how are you going to repay me for nurturing you and teaching you all sorts of top-notch battle skills and secret arts?" Pondering for a moment, Han Fei asked, "How do you want me to pay you back?" Qishue Huan's eyes flickered. "Simple. Help me do 3 things. When you're done, you can leave any time." Han Fei asked how long. Qishue Huan grinned. "Lifespan shouldn't be a problem for you. If it's fast, it'll take 3 to 5 years. If it's slow, it'll take 7 to 8 years. Once you're done with these 3 things, you can leave at any time." Han Fei sneered in his heart. "Who's going to follow you for 3 to 5 years? I'll be lucky if I can stay here for 3 to 5 months. However, on the surface, Han Fei asked indifferently, "What is it?" Qishue Huan smiled faintly and said, "There's no hurry. Although you're a legendary creature, you're still weak. Moreover, be it cultivation technique or battle skill, they were both lacking. You still need more training. With your current strength, there are 2 places that are most suitable for you to train your combat skills." Han Fei wondered, "Where?" Qishue Huan said, "The Sea Demon Coliseum is the first battlefront between the sea demons and humans. I prefer the latter. If you survive on the human battlefield, your strength will definitely be greatly improved." Han Fei thought to himself, "Do you think I'm stupid? Go to the Scattered Stars Island now. It wasn't easy for me to get out. At that time, I want to have a chance to deduce void fishing. Anyway, I can't go there." Han Fei said, "Let's go to the Sea Demon Coliseum first." Qishue Huan waved his hand, and more than a dozen jade slips appeared. "It's up to you. You can stay in the 10,000 Demon Valley for a while. You've just transformed, so your speed of improvement is extremely fast. But remember, you can't exceed level 50. Han Fei was surprised. Why? Qixue Huan said, first of all, if there are no accidents, we need someone whose realm is within this range. When the time is right, you'll know. Han Fei guessed that he needed to explore a secret realm by himself. This secret realm required him to be a hanging fisher. However, Han Fei was a little troubled. Would he rob this secret realm with the human beings? Then it would be troublesome. Since he was a legendary creature, it must not be an ordinary secret realm. However, of course, he wanted to go in. After all, secret realms represented treasures. Forget it. Let's take it one step at a time. Qixue Huan left. Before leaving, he said to Han Fei, in the future, no other big shots will come to trouble you. You can solve the trivial problems yourself. First of all, I don't know when exactly it will be, but you need to hurry up and practice your combat skills. After Qixue Huan left, Han Fei sat alone for a long time. Things really changed. Han Fei didn't intend to stay in the 10,000 Demon Valley for long. After all, this was not the territory of humans. It was uncomfortable to stay here for a long time. If it weren't for Qixue Huan's hint that the first thing to do was to explore the secret realm, Han Fei might not have talked to him at all. Why the F***ck would I do 3 things for you? If I want to leave, you might not be able to catch me. Yufu looked at Han Fei differently at this moment. This lord seemed to be on the same level as Yu Ji in just a moment. Sure enough, heavenly talents will shine wherever they are. Han Fei secretly smiled. Since he was not in a hurry to leave, he was not in a hurry to let Little Black take Overlord to rob. He might really be able to try the Sea Demon combat skills. With the Heavens extended art, whether it was the human society or the Sea Demon world, he seemed to be able to conquer both sides in the future. Thinking of this, Han Fei couldn't help but glance at the combat skills and techniques left by Qixue Huan. As a result, Han Fei found that there was a heaven-level, low-quality cultivation method and 4 heaven-level, low-quality combat skills among them. Han Fei immediately took a breath. Qixue Huan is really bold. He's really not afraid that I'll run away. That cultivation method was naturally ignored by Han Fei. If he wanted to cultivate, he would cultivate the true spirit demonic scripture. Although they were both heaven-level, low-quality, these 2 concepts were completely different. The reason why the true spirit demonic scripture was heaven-level, low-quality was entirely because the first Sea King incarnated the way of heaven and imparted the scripture to all living beings in the sea. To deduce this cultivation method, it would cost 100 million yuan. How could an ordinary heaven-level, low-quality cultivation method compare to it? As for other basic combat skills, Han Fei almost ignored those that were not heaven-level. 4 heaven-level, low-quality combat skills were enough for him to cultivate. Besides, Qixue Huan was quite thoughtful. These combat skills could be said to be both offensive and defensive. They were Sea King's secret method. Han Fei already had this. But Han Fei might not be able to show his powerful inherited combat skills all the time. The point was that the so-called inherited overlord body was just a bluff. If it was seen through, it would be over. Flying Flower Demon Flash, a combat footwork for sea monsters. After reading it, Han Fei found that this footwork could allow his body to shuttle freely within 20 meters and break the void. It was a close combat flashing combat skill. Han Fei suspected that if this Flying Flower Demon Flash continued to be deduced, it might be very terrifying. If it could be compared to Xia Xiaochan's flash, it would be even more terrifying. Besides, if he could use it after becoming a human, that would be invincible. One line of light. This was the power of the harpoon that Yuji and the others used when they fought. It was so powerful that even he had to be careful when dealing with it. Combined with the Sea God's secret method, it was even as powerful as Han Fei's previous draw technique. 17 Dragon Fists, a sea monster fist technique with a total of 17 moves, each stronger than the last. It was said that the strongest one could punch 17 times in an instant, which could crack mountains and break rocks and break ultra-quality demonic weapons with bare hands. Han Fei thought about it. This 17 Dragon Fists was not bad. After coming to the 10,000 Demon Valley, he definitely couldn't use the sacrificing punch. As for the art of invincibility, he wouldn't use it if he could. At this time, it was best to use a fist technique as a substitute. Han Fei soon made up his mind. He would use 3 days to practice these combat skills. 3 days later, he would go to the Sea Monster Coliseum and fight. Yu Fu. Yes, I'm here. Yu Fu was completely terrified at this moment. Han Fei's rise was already unstoppable. Besides, Yu Fu also heard what Han Fei said just now. This man was looking for the Great Way. In terms of awareness, he was even higher than Yuji. He couldn't afford to offend such a person. Han Fei glanced at him. I want to practice my cultivation methods and combat skills. Is there a place? Yu Fu quickly said, Yes, there's a cultivation canyon on the west side, and all the half-mermaids and half-mermaids cultivate in that canyon. Cultivation canyon? Yu Fu explained, there is a demonic heritage under the 10,000 Demon Tower, so we can cultivate there. If you can go to the 10,000 Demon Tower, you don't have to go to the cultivation canyon. But since you haven't gone to the 10,000 Demon Tower, the cultivation canyon is the most suitable place for you to cultivate. Back then, Miss Yuji and the others also walked out of the cultivation canyon step by step. Han Fei got up and walked to the door, ignoring the commotion outside. Little Black plunged into his body and, through the stolen things, into forge the universe together with the Overlord. Han Fei's face was expressionless. In that case, I'll go to the cultivation canyon. If Yuji comes back, tell her to come to me. Yes, my lord. Second, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 759. It had been 3 months since he ran away from the Scattered Stars Island. The life tablet was probably broken too. He was afraid that Luo Xiaobai and the others would find it. However, because he was forced to leave the island, it would be difficult for Luo Xiaobai and the others to come out again. Old Jiang couldn't find him, so he wouldn't look for him randomly. However, he didn't know if anyone had reminded Tang Ge. Would he run out? Han Fei couldn't care less at this moment. After all, he was already in the Myriad Demon Valley. In fact, he was waiting for an expert to appear and take him away. Then, he demanded an exorbitant amount of resources. But since seeing Qixue Huan, he found that things were not so simple. Only Qixue Huan came, and it seemed that he was not going to let him enter the 10,000 Demon Tower, which gave him no chance to ask for more. Forget it. Let's go take a look at that cultivation canyon first. Yu Fu led Han Fei all the way west, which was actually the other side of the 10,000 Demon Valley. Yu Fu said respectfully, Master, there are daily cultivation waters, ordinary demon realms, and ancient 72-floor demon realms in the cultivation canyon. At this time, Master has not yet practiced a suitable sea demon cultivation method. His combat skills are not yet proficient, so don't force your way into the ancient 72-floor demon realm. Oh, what kind of place is the ancient 72-floor demon realm? Yu Fu explained, It is said that the establishment of the 10,000 Demon Valley is due to the existence of the demonic heritage. In the past, when the sea monsters discovered the demon vein, they also discovered the demon realm. It was said that this was a small demon realm. Legend has it that in the true Sea Demon King City, there is a truly peerless demon realm. Han Fei was surprised. Sea Demon King City? Yu Fu sighed. The royal city has always been a legend. Some ordinary sea demons had never been to the 10,000 Demon Valley before, so they thought this was the royal city. Little did they know that no one had ever been to the real royal city, nor had they seen anyone from royal city come here. However, the Myriad Demon Valley was already a holy land, especially the ancient 72-floor demon realm. It was said that since the 10,000 Demon Valley had existed for countless years, no one had been able to reach the top. That place is where the great opportunity lies. Han Fei was shocked. What? It's been so long, and no one has gone in? Are there so few heavenly talents among the sea demons? Yu Fu shook his head. How can it be less? There were countless prodigies, and it was recorded on the demon steel that 68 of them had entered level 71. Below the 71st floor, each floor was filled with 100 people. However, not a single person was able to enter the 72nd floor. Han Fei was surprised. What is the demon steel? Yu Fu said respectfully, the demon steel is a rock wall, which records the top 100 heavenly talents on each floor in the history of the 72-floor demon realm. This ranking was not based on the number of levels passed in the demon realm, but the top 100 experts in each level. Even the 100th place on the first level can be considered a genius. Han Fei was a little shocked. It seemed that this 10,000 Demon Valley was also extraordinary. After such a long time, the ancient 72-floor demon realm was still left behind. Han Fei asked, "Is Yuji on the list?" Yu Fu said proudly, "Yes, yes." Miss Yuji had passed the 61st floor of the demon realm and was ranked 81st. Only then will he be qualified to be taken in as a disciple by Lord Northstar. Han Fei was speechless. She's already 81st. Why is she so proud? Yu Fu was even more speechless. My lord, the demon steel records the strongest heavenly talents in history. Although it only records the sea demons below level 50, it has been accumulated over countless years. Han Fei didn't deny it. Time didn't mean anything. However, Han Fei felt that he should also be a lot weaker. After all, since meeting Chun Huangdian, Han Fei would no longer consider himself a peerless heavenly talent. In terms of talent, Chun Huangdian's talent surpassed all the people he had ever seen. He was the most talented one. An hour later, Han Fei finally came to the so-called Cultivation Canyon. It was more like a training ground than a long, abyss-like strait. As far as the eye could see, it stretched for dozens of kilometers. After listening to Yu Fu's introduction, Han Fei learned that this was actually an ordinary training ground that stretched for more than 120 kilometers. As far as Han Fei could see, there were sea demons floating in the water, half-mermaids fighting fiercely, and half-mermaids practicing combat skills alone in the water. Such a scene stretched as far as the eye could see. Yu Fu took Han Fei here, and Yu Fu said respectfully, "My lord, this is an ordinary training ground. The deeper you go, the more advanced the training ground will be. But my lord, don't rush in directly. If you want to enter the ancient 72-floor demon realm, you have to fight all the way." Han Fei glanced at this ordinary training ground full of half-mermaids and frowned. There are so many people. How can I cultivate here? Han Fei immediately said, "Go ahead. I'll go alone." "Yes, my lord." Han Fei's arrival was destined to attract too many people. Some people knew about Han Fei's previous deeds, but most people didn't. Because from the battle with Yu Yun to the arrival of Qi Huan and his arrival in this cultivation canyon, it had been less than 8 hours. The news that Han Fei was a legendary awakened sea demon hadn't spread yet. So, as soon as Han Fei arrived here, someone immediately scolded, "Where did this inferior sea demon come from? Get out of here." A half-mermaid with slightly better eyesight saw Han Fei and sneered. "An azure sea blue demon? Amazing. Why didn't you go to the Blood Sea Valley? Why did you come to the Cultivation Canyon? Is this a place you can come to?" Han Fei said indifferently, "Get out of the way." A half-mermaid sneered. "Get out of the way? Who do you think you are? Even an azure sea blue demon is not qualified to come to the Cultivation Canyon to cultivate. Go quickly, or I'll beat you until you leave." Yu Fu hadn't gone far. Seeing this scene, he thought to himself, what a fool. Don't you think? Since Master Yu Fei can come here as an azure sea blue demon, how can he not have some confidence? Han Fei said leisurely, "Do you want to fight? Then come on." Swish! Han Fei stabbed out with his harpoon. The speed was so fast, and the power was so fierce that the seawater exploded, and the person closest to Han Fei was directly poked hundreds of meters away by the harpoon. There were no fancy combat skills or magical footwork. It was just a simple harpoon, which was as simple as a slash, but no one could block it. What a strong power! No wonder you dare to come to the Cultivation Canyon. Let me fight you. Seeing that Yu Fu hadn't gone far, Han Fei immediately looked back and asked, "Can we fight to the death here?" Yu Fu opened his mouth, but before he could answer, someone sneered. "This azure sea blue demon wants to fight to the death? Of course, you can fight to the death here. As long as you agree, you can fight to the death." Han Fei looked back and nodded. Very good. If you want to challenge me, I'll fight to the death. Who wants to fight to the death? Han Fei's voice was extremely cold. Hearing his words, many people immediately flinched. They were all here to cultivate. Who wanted to fight to the death here? However, among 100 people, there were always one or two naive people who were always extremely confident and thought they could win. Immediately, someone stood up, bared his sharp teeth, and looked at Han Fei coldly. I'll fight. On the path of cultivation, how can you be successful if you're afraid of death? Today, I'll let you know that it's not so easy to enter the cultivation canyon. This person's whole body was ignited with white flames, and he activated the Sea King's secret method. A big green fish covered his whole body, and his head was green. Seeing this scene, Han Fei couldn't help but sneer. Why isn't his head green? However, Han Fei clearly felt that this person's realm didn't seem to be higher than his. What's the point of using the Sea King's secret method? Immediately, Han Fei didn't even need to use any combat skills. He just pointed his harpoon again. The phantom of hundreds of feet pierced through the seawater, letting out a sharp howl. It was a simple harpoon, but it was extremely domineering. The half-mermaid roared and pointed his harpoon exactly as Han Fei did. However, the tip of his harpoon was shining brilliantly and emitting a dense demonic aura. Bam! Crack! The harpoon in the opponent's hand broke. Han Fei had already passed by him and stood behind him. The harpoon pierced through his body. Han Fei grabbed the blood-stained harpoon and moved forward step by step as if he had done a trivial thing. With one blow, a half-mermaid was killed. Seeing this scene, countless surrounding half-mermaids were horrified. Who on earth is this azure sea blue demon? Someone was shocked. Is this azure sea blue demon so powerful? Someone backed down. Not everyone could afford a life-and-death battle. In the distance, Yu Fu left quietly after seeing this scene. He was wondering if Master Yu Fei would become the next person to step on the demon's steel. Yu Fu couldn't help but think so. This was the awakening of a legendary creature. In terms of level, it was probably higher than that of an ordinary half-mermaid heavenly talent. If he could show his talent, he wouldn't necessarily be worse than Yuji. Han Fei walked very slowly. However, within thousands of meters, no half-mermaid dared to come up to fight him. Fighting with such a lunatic was fatal. When Han Fei walked more than 8,000 meters, a second person finally jumped out. However, with one blow, half of the person's body was blasted through. Han Fei was still moving forward, not even stopping. 30 kilometers later, someone attacked again. This person was holding an ultra-quality demonic weapon with a sealed spirit, and his strength had reached the peak. This time, Han Fei attacked again. For the first time, he used the so-called Sea King's secret method. When a thick white light enveloped him, Han Fei felt a magical power, which seemed to be a branch stretching out from the void or the nectar of the ninth heaven, suddenly falling into his body. In addition to becoming stronger, this feeling was also very comfortable. It was more comfortable than soaking in a hot spring, resting when tired, or standing for a long time. No wonder you all like to use this combat skill. When Han Fei stabbed out with his harpoon, the demon purification pot trembled. Han Fei clearly felt an inexplicable palpitation. It was as if something had broken away from him. The person on the opposite side seemed to notice that Han Fei was distracted and was attacking with all his strength. A terrifying force rolled up 100 meters of seawater and rushed at Han Fei. Gotcha! The harpoon in Han Fei's hand broke. However, the result was unexpected. Han Fei grabbed half of the iron handle in his hand and slashed across the person's chest. At that moment, the person's chest burst open and blood flowed out. Han Fei held the opponent's harpoon, and demonic energy burst out of his hand, forcibly suppressing the vibrating demonic weapon. It just so happens that I need a good weapon. Third chapter, asking for votes. By the way, yesterday, a group member proposed to do a live stream. I've opened it up on YN, and we can chat occasionally. What do you guys think? Welcome. If you have nothing to do, you can set a time to do a live stream. Today is the third chapter, and there should be an extra chapter tomorrow, end of this chapter. Chapter 760. Welcome the new leader, Dior. Han Fei didn't intend to stay here. What he wanted to come to was not this ordinary cultivation place, but the ancient 72-floor demon realm. If Fu didn't tell him about the ancient 72-floor demon realm, Han Fei wouldn't let it go. After all, he could be both a human and a siren. As long as he wanted, he could do whatever he wanted in the world of humans and sea demons. After all, they were the same in body. So, what was the difference in cultivation level? Although he hadn't practiced the cultivation methods of the demon race yet, Han Fei didn't believe that there was anyone he couldn't beat in this ordinary cultivation field. If so, Qi Huan probably wouldn't come to him. His legendary identity would no longer have any meaning. Han Fei was still walking. However, no one challenged him anymore. More people were thinking, what's the background of this azure sea blue demon? He's terrifyingly strong, and he only used one blow from the beginning to the end. When he was 100 kilometers away, someone attacked. Han Fei felt that this person's momentum was not weak. Behind him stood a huge stone man tens of meters high, his body burning with white flames, and the 8 sharp claws behind him were ready to attack. The man looked at Han Fei. I know that an azure sea blue demon who can come here must be extraordinary. However, fighting is the fastest way to advance. Fight with me. Han Fei bared his teeth. This is a life and death battle. Only life and death. The man smiled. I know. Han Fei was a little puzzled. Why don't you go to the demon realm? The man grinned. Not everyone is a heavenly talent. Since you're not a heavenly talent, it's not as meaningful as this kind of life and death battle. Han Fei asked, aren't there ordinary demon realms? The man shook his head. It's meaningless. I came from the ordinary demon realm to wait for you. Han Fei nodded, thinking there are many brave sea demons. Since this man was ready to die, Han Fei wouldn't stop him. He just said lightly, you will die. As Han Fei spoke, the giant moved and punched down, shattering the seawater. Han Fei activated the majestic mystic spell and watched the huge fist mark break through the waves. Han Fei said, I forgot to tell you that my inherited secret skill is the Overlord body. Boom! The seawater exploded, smoke and dust billowed, and bubbles rolled out. The shockwave spread out for dozens of miles. With just one strike, the stone man shattered with a loud bang, as if it had never existed. That person had already charged over. However, instead of using a harpoon, he turned his hands into knives. Together with the 8 sharp thorns behind him, he was equivalent to 10 sharp blades, bombarding Han Fei. As usual, Han Fei used the harpoon in his hand to spin water as a shield. Clang, clang, clang. After 100 consecutive attacks, the man failed to penetrate Han Fei's defense. Seeing this scene, countless half-mermaids were shocked. It was a miracle that Han Fei could use the transient golden halberd to such an extent. Han Fei twisted his wrist and said casually, this impermanence golden halberd has a technique called breaking waves by pointing stars, which requires sufficient demonic chi, fast speed, and great strength. You should all be able to use it, but have a taste of mine. Han Fei stabbed out with his harpoon. Different from before, this strike was too fast, too fast. When the seawater broke through, it was a sonic boom. This was a completely different feeling from unleashing such power in the air. In the seawater, white fireworks were ignited. Seeing this scene, the half-mermaid was horrified. This was an inherited secret technique plus the Sea King's secret method. This power was no longer something he could resist. However, if he could block this blow, he could be sure that he was only a step away from breaking through the barrier and stepping into the real sea demon realm. Swish! Crack, crack, crack. A water column rushed out more than 100 meters. When the smoke and dust dissipated, Han Fei had already walked hundreds of meters forward, and the blades in front of the half-mermaid were all broken, none of them intact. There was a small hole between his eyebrows, from which blood flowed out. Han Fei pointed at the half-mermaid's eyebrows, and the result was already revealed. Countless pairs of eyes were full of shock. Was this really an azure sea blue demon? These people were just shocked and then whispered to each other, sending voice transmissions to each other. However, what they didn't know was that Han Fei only left a glimpse of his back. At this moment, he was grimacing in pain. After all, he was facing a desperate blow from the other party. After all, he was using the body of a sea demon at the moment. Although he was not familiar with combat skills, Han Fei felt he was strong enough to fight like this. However, this also indirectly proved that the ancient 72-floor demon realm might not be so easy to break through. Even that guy just now could only break through the ordinary demon realm. And although he won, he wasn't much stronger than him. Han Fei knew that it was time for him to cultivate. After the ordinary cultivation place, there was a large open space of hundreds of kilometers. But it was not really empty. He just started walking and hadn't reached the ordinary demon realm yet. But Han Fei didn't plan to go to the demon realm immediately. After walking for more than 10 kilometers, he floated up and began to cultivate the True Spirit Demonic Scripture. The True Spirit Demonic Scripture said that this was an enlightening cultivation method, and it was extremely difficult to become a big demon. But Han Fei was now enlightening it. Before, he didn't understand the cultivation of sea demons at all. All combat experience was gained through fighting. Although it was also suitable for sea demons, there was no cultivation method to support it after all. The demonic energy he used was also forcibly injected, and he didn't fully utilize it. The cultivation of sea demons was different from that of human beings. Human beings needed to sit cross-legged, guide spiritual energy into their bodies, wash their bodies, broaden their meridians, temper their will, and stabilize their souls. But sea demons were different. The cultivation results might be the same, but the postures were different. Sea demons floated in the water to cultivate. When cultivating, the surface of their bodies was covered with a faint layer of demonic energy. After the demonic energy entered the body, it condensed in his dantian and between his eyebrows. With these 2 points as the foundation, it spread throughout his body and slowly improved. However, when Han Fei started to cultivate the True Spirit Demonic Scripture, an accident happened. The white bead that had been silent in his dantian began to spin rapidly. As it spun, demonic energy rolled over from all directions. This time, many sea demons more than 10 kilometers away were shocked again. They saw that Han Fei stopped in the distance and began to cultivate. However, they didn't expect that Han Fei's cultivation would be so noisy. The demonic energy gathered and rolled like a tide. Han Fei was like a huge funnel, swallowing crazily. Someone was dumbfounded. Is this really the first time this guy has cultivated? Someone was dumbfounded. That's why I said that he was able to get through all the obstacles without cultivating. Someone sighed. It seems that there will be one more azure sea blue demon in the 10,000 Demon Valley. Many people thought of Qishua Huan, an expert who used to be a crimson blood red demon and the only red demon among the 8 wings of Blue Feather. Qishua Huan was watching this scene with a few people dozens of kilometers away. Even Qishua Huan himself couldn't help exclaiming, "No wonder he's a legendary creature. His cultivation speed is even faster than mine." Beside him, someone murmured, "I don't know why, but I suspect that Yu was killed by this kid." Another half-mermaid smiled and said, "Even if he killed Yu, so what? He's a legendary creature. Can Yu compare to a legendary creature? If we can keep this kid in the 10,000 Demon Valley, our strength will definitely increase greatly in the future." Someone frowned. "Qishua Huan, is he really going to leave?" Qishua Huan said lightly, "If you are a legendary creature, will you stay?" The man thought for a while and shook his head slightly. "If I had that kind of talent, I would definitely pursue the Great Tao. But when I make a breakthrough, maybe I will leave too." Qishua Huan said, "That's right. Even if we force him to stay, who dares to? If this kid grows to a certain extent, he may be able to suppress us in the future. At that time, we will retaliate. Who can stop him? But now he has promised us some benefits. Maybe he can help us in the future." Another half-mermaid said, "Well, even if he is a legendary creature, his growth won't be so fast. The higher the level, the slower the growth. It's still too early for him to reach our level." At this moment, Han Fei really didn't know that so many strong masters were watching him. He was shocked. What on earth was the demon essence white bead in his dantian? He was shocked at the beginning. When the Snow God's Temple Master gave him this demon essence, he knew it was not good, because the name demon essence was too evil. Besides, thinking of the fact that so many sea demons condensed their sea demon heroic souls for this thing, Han Fei knew that this thing must have something to do with the sea demons. He didn't know that this thing was so domineering that it forcibly absorbed demonic energy from all directions. He felt that the strange meridians in his body were crazily absorbing demonic energy like a dry desert. However, although he absorbed a lot of demonic energy, the improvement didn't seem to be much. There was no so-called marrow cleansing. After only an hour, Han Fei felt that he was full, and the speed of demonic energy absorption also slowed down. He looked at his data. Owner Han Fei level 48, advanced demonic transformation, demonic energy 203-2251-15392, spiritual power 1912 perception range 19999 meter spiritual heritage, level 5, high quality spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 40, companion spirit, none main art, true spirit demonic scripture. Sure enough, the change is too small, except that the spiritual energy has been completely transformed into demonic energy, and the companion spirit hasn't been born. It's basically the same as before. However, Han Fei was tempted. What if he could awaken a companion spirit? Immediately, Han Fei opened his eyes. Since the cultivation method couldn't produce qualitative changes, he might as well try to cultivate combat skills. Please vote. By the way, the EAN livestream starts at 7 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday. The EAN broadcast starts every Saturday and Sunday at 7 p.m. If I'm not there by then, it means I have something else to do. Thank you for your support into this chapter. Chapter 761. Han Fei chose only 3 combat skills, namely, Flying Flower Demon Flash, Flowing Light Character, and 17 Dragon Fists. He knew one thing very well. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Among the many combat skills he had, bow techniques, rod techniques, seal techniques, and even footwork, none of which he was proficient in. Was it because Han Fei didn't want to learn? The main reason was that he didn't have time. Therefore, after Qixue Huan gave Han Fei more than a dozen combat skills, Han Fei only chose 3. He already had the Sea King's secret method. Besides, he didn't seem to need to learn it. However, when Han Fei used the Sea King's secret method, he always felt a little scared. This made him suspect that the side effects of using the secret method couldn't be made up for by eating more food. Han Fei decided not to use the Sea King's secret method as much as possible. Otherwise, if he used it too much and something went wrong, who could he turn to? Considering this, Han Fei chose to practice the 17 Dragon Fists first. He already had 2 Peerless Fist marks, so it should be much easier to learn fist marks. The so-called 17 fist marks were fist marks with 17 different ways of exerting force. Some relied on the body, some relied on demonic energy, and some needed mixed spiritual energy. The last punch even needed to attract the power of tides, which coincided with the ups and downs of the tides and the flow of water. However, this was almost not difficult for Han Fei. At least, the first 10 punches were very easy for him. Han Fei had the experience of practicing the desolate god body, so it was very easy for him to use them. So, in the eyes of others, Han Fei blasted out 8 punches in a row. The punches were weird, and the light red fist marks made smoke billow before Han Fei's eyes. Qixue Huan was also surprised. This kid started learning fist techniques and learned them so fast. Someone said, "Is this legendary level talent?" The 17 Dragon Fists seemed simple, but each punch is more difficult than the last. He blasted out 8 punches in one breath. Does he want to master this fist technique in one go? Someone next to him joked, "I don't know if he can master it in one go." However, his innate talent is really strong, even more so than many of the Heaven's Chosen. Qixue Huan bared his teeth. "Fine, I'll come back in a few days." He was not allowed to come to the 10,000 Demon Tower because he wanted him to go to the 72-floor ancient demon realm. I really want to see how many levels he can reach in a few days. 13, 14, 15. Han Fei was practicing punching, and a half-mermaid in the distance was counting in shock. Someone was speechless. Is this guy really cultivating for the first time? Wasn't this cultivation speed a little too fast? In less than the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, he's almost done with the 17 dragon fists. Someone said enviously, for the first time in my life, I'm envious of an azure sea blue demon. Han Fei didn't feel anything. He only felt that this fist technique was simple and violent, and the demonic energy that it emitted was wreaking havoc. The will was condensed, and there seemed to be a hint of an attack on the divine soul. The last strike coincided with the ups and downs of the tides. Han Fei secretly manipulated the seawater to give him a hand. In the first hour, Han Fei successfully practiced the 17 dragon fists. On the third day, in the evening, the harpoon in Han Fei's hand turned into a beam of light and pierced out more than 500 meters in an instant. On the seventh day, Han Fei simulated the flying flower demon flash with a 64-item fish dragon dance. His body turned into a series of afterimages, but he couldn't flash. Han Fei was thinking, the power of space was not so easy to master. Even if he knew the 1,000-mile fishing technique and could break the space point, it was still unrealistic to flash his body. The flying flower demon flash explained it very clearly. Why was it called flying flower? It meant to condense the demonic energy into a piece and penetrate into the surrounding space. Then, let the demonic energy in his body resonate with the demonic energy he emitted and establish a connection. With this connection, Han Fei could appear anywhere within 20 meters of him. However, Han Fei could shoot out demonic energy petals, so it wasn't a big problem to establish a connection. However, whenever Han Fei tried to disperse himself, he would get stuck. It seemed that the void wouldn't let him go. Many sea demons were watching Han Fei cultivate. Someone was betting. I don't think the flying flower demon flash is so easy to learn. It is said that even the most powerful Yushan took 19 days to learn this combat skill. Someone smiled bitterly. Don't forget, there is only one Yushan. Except for him, it basically took nearly 3 months or even more than half a year to learn this combat skill. Someone guessed, no matter how powerful this Yu Fei is, I'm afraid he won't be able to learn this combat skill without 10 days or half a month. While everyone was commenting, Han Fei floated directly into the water, holding a mass of demonic energy in his hand. He intended to throw this mass of demonic energy into his other hand. However, he didn't throw it normally, but directly teleported this mass of demonic energy in the air. Han Fei murmured, the so-called flying flower demonic chi is actually a mark. However, the mark is so small. How can I pull myself over? Huh? Wait, why? If this mass of demonic energy is not a mass of air, but a knife, can I pass it with the void-breaking strike? So Han Fei flicked his hand lightly, and the mass of demonic energy disappeared and appeared in his other hand. Immediately, Han Fei cheered up. Sure enough, he was still good at attacking. Swish! When the crowd saw Han Fei's figure disappear and appear 7 or 8 meters away, they immediately wailed. He's learned it again. What kind of monstrous talent is this? Damn, how can this guy be an azure sea blue demon? Others praised Han Fei's outstanding talent, but Han Fei curled his lips. He found that this flying flower demon flash was not fast enough and consumed a lot of energy. It could be listed as a heaven-level low-quality combat skill because it could flash. However, compared with Xia Xiaochan's flash, this thing was too weak. Although it was not easy to be discovered when it flashed, the moment it appeared, there was a flaw. It was easy to be discovered because the space was breaking and shaking. It's not very useful. Han Fei spat. It took him 4 days to learn this thing. It didn't seem worth it. After practicing the 3 combat skills, Han Fei walked directly to the depths of the cultivation canyon. He wanted to see what the so-called demon realm was. After walking for about 20 kilometers, Han Fei saw people floating in the sea, cultivating. When they saw Han Fei, no one came up to challenge him, because in the past few days, everyone had known that there was such a monster who was talented and cultivated extremely fast. However, no one went up to say hello to Han Fei. The grudge of the half-mermaids against the azure sea blue demons was still imprinted in their hearts. It had nothing to do with talent or grade. They admitted that Han Fei was not an ordinary azure sea blue demon and was even more talented than most half-mermaids. However, after all, they were not of the same kind. They refused and didn't want to accept this person. After walking for another 40 kilometers or so, Han Fei saw the first demon realm. The so-called demon realm was a cliff cave in a canyon. Outside the cave entrance, hundreds of people gathered on the bottom of the sea, all of whom seemed to be ready to go to the cliff cave to cultivate at any time. The cave was covered by a layer of gray mist. Walking in, he should be able to see what the inside of the cliff cave immediately. However, Han Fei didn't see the demon steel. Maybe because this was just an ordinary demon realm, there was no such thing as the demon steel. Many people were looking at Han Fei. Was this alien finally coming to the demon realm? Some people looked at Han Fei unkindly, feeling that he was too proud and didn't like him. Some people were indifferent, feeling that it had nothing to do with them. Some people were looking forward to seeing if this heavenly talent who suddenly appeared could withstand the first demon realm. Even if they guessed that ordinary demon realms might not be able to stop Han Fei at all. When Han Fei came over, the crowd made way for him. Ignoring them, Han Fei stepped into the gray mist with one step. The moment Han Fei entered the demon realm, he suddenly felt that the blood in his body was trembling, as if there was some kind of force trying to tear him apart. And his body's natural reaction was to tighten his skin and bulge his muscles to resist this force. A place to cultivate the body? Han Fei looked around and found that this cave was a road, about 100 meters wide, blocked by gray mist. Han Fei tried to release his perception, but he could only detect more than 20 meters away. In his perception, there was some broken limestone on the ground. On those limestone, there were sparse small vine leaves. In most places, there were even algae growing, like a storage room that had been closed for a long time. If it weren't for the traces left in many places, Han Fei would think that no one had been here for hundreds or thousands of years. Han Fei walked all the way forward. Every step he took, he felt that his blood would sway slightly, very slightly. However, when Han Fei walked hundreds of meters, he found that the tearing force was getting stronger and stronger, and some people appeared in his perception. There were half-mermaids floating, looking ferocious, as if resisting this tearing force. Han Fei grinned. How can this level of tearing force be called a demon realm? All the way forward, walking for more than 1,000 meters, there were more and more half-mermaids floating in the water. Some of them were still surrounded by faint demonic energy. Han Fei also felt that the tearing force was more than 3 times stronger than at the beginning, but it was not enough to make Han Fei feel dangerous. After walking for 3,000 meters, the force was already about 5 times stronger than when he first entered. At this moment, fewer and fewer people appeared. Interesting, the so-called demon realm is actually a way to help sea demons cultivate their body. When Han Fei walked about 5,000 meters, he found that he had come to the end. There were only 7 or 8 half-mermaids who could cultivate nearby. Of course, Han Fei didn't look for them horizontally. He didn't know how many there were, and he didn't care about this. Feeling the faint tingling from his skin, Han Fei was more sure that this ordinary demon realm was useless to him. It couldn't even help him improve at all. It seems that I still have to go to that ancient 72-floored demon realm. Asking for votes. End of this chapter.